The first thing my brother did after our father's funeral was change the locks on my penthouse. Not our father's house. Not the family cottage in Whistler. My penthouse. The 2-level glass residence sat above Cole Harbor, 48 floors over Vancouver Harbor, with a private elevator, a rooftop conservatory, and a view that stretched from Stanley Park to the snowline of the North Shore Mountains. It had been appraised at $140 million after a foreign buyer tried to purchase the entire building's upper floors. I had declined the offer. Apparently, my brother had not. I arrived from the cemetery still wearing black, carrying my father's leather document case under one arm. Rain streaked the lobby windows. My heels clicked across the marble while the concierge Daniel stood so quickly behind his desk that his chair rolled backward. "Miss Mercer," he said, his face tightening. That was the first warning. The second was the security guard near the private elevator. The third was the brass key card Daniel held between 2 fingers as if it were contaminated. "Your access has been suspended." I stared at him. "By whom?" Daniel looked toward the security guard, then back at me. "Mr. Evan Mercer. My brother does not own this building." "No." "He does not own my penthouse." "No." "He does not have authority over my access." Daniel swallowed. He gave management a copy of the probate application. I almost laughed. "Probate for what?" "Your father's estate. My penthouse is not part of my father's estate." Daniel lowered his voice. "He says it is." The elevator doors opened behind me. Evan stepped out as if he had timed his entrance. He had removed his funeral coat and replaced it with a charcoal cashmere jacket. His tie was gone. His face carried the solemn, composed expression he used when negotiating acquisitions. He had always understood the value of appearing calm while everyone else panicked. Behind him stood his wife, Sabrina, wearing cream wool and diamond earrings my mother had once owned. That detail cut deeper than the locks. Sabrina folded her arms. "You came back quickly." I turned to Evan. "You changed my access. I secured a disputed estate asset." "It is not disputed." "You say that." "The land title office says that." His mouth curved slightly. "We'll see." I placed the leather case on the concierge desk and removed my gloves 1 finger at a time. "Open the elevator." Evan shook his head. "Not until we establish who has beneficial ownership. My name is the only name on title. Legal title isn't the same as beneficial title." "You learned one phrase from a lawyer and decided to steal my home?" Sabrina exhaled sharply. "No one is stealing anything." I looked at her. "You are wearing our mother's earrings." Her hand rose to one ear. "They were in the estate jewelry box. They were left to me in her personal memorandum." "Which was never witnessed," Evan said. The concierge watched us with the expression of a man wishing the floor would open. I leaned toward my brother. "You had no authority to distribute anything today." "I'm executor." "You applied to be executor." "Father named me." "Father changed his will." That landed. For less than a second, Evan's expression slipped. Sabrina's eyes moved to the leather document case. Then he recovered. "You've been saying that for months." "I've been saying it because it's true. Our father was on medication. He was competent. He was dying. He knew exactly what he was doing." Evan stepped closer. "Did he?" The question was quiet but cruel. Our father, Richard Mercer, had built Mercer Pacific Holdings from a single shipping warehouse near the Fraser River into a private empire that touched ports, hotels, commercial towers, timber, data centers, and renewable energy. Depending on valuation methods and debt structures, financial magazines estimated his net worth between 40 and 60 billion Canadian dollars. The penthouse was different. It was not purchased by Mercer Pacific. It was not held by one of our father's trusts. It was not bought with a company loan. I had purchased it through my own holding company after selling my software logistics platform 11 years earlier. Later, during a restructuring, I transferred the property into my personal name. I had the transfer documents. I had the tax records. I had the bank statements. And Evan knew all of that. Which meant this was not confusion. It was strategy. He wanted me locked out before I could organize. He wanted physical possession because possession looked persuasive to people who did not understand law. He wanted the family, the building management, the banks, and eventually the court to see him standing inside while I stood in the lobby explaining why it belonged to me. I picked up the document case. "Daniel, call the police." Evan gave a small laugh. This is a civil dispute. Then the police can watch while a locksmith restores my access. You'll damage estate property. I faced him fully. Say that again. The penthouse is inherited by everyone. The words echoed through the lobby. Sabrina watched me with open satisfaction now. Evan continued. Father funded the original purchase through Mercer Pacific Distributions. You held it in your name as a convenience. It was always intended as a family asset. I stared at him. He had rehearsed this. Not just the claim, the wording. Show me the trust agreement. There wasn't one. Show me the beneficial ownership declaration. There wasn't one. Show me the loan. It was informal. Show me the repayment schedule. There wasn't one. Show me a single email from Father calling my home a family asset. Evan's jaw tightened. You're proving my point. Families don't always document everything. Billion-dollar families document lunch. Daniel coughed into his hand to hide something that might have been a laugh. Evan glanced at him. The concierge immediately looked down. I continued. You are not claiming a cottage bought 30 years ago with shared funds. You are claiming a $140 million property in downtown Vancouver. There would be records. There are records. That made me pause. Evan reached inside his jacket and removed a folded document. He opened it on the concierge desk. It was a wire confirmation. The sender was Mercer Pacific Holdings. The recipient was North Coast Residential Developments. The amount was $82 million. The date matched the original Penthouse purchase. For the first time since entering the lobby, I felt cold. Not frightened. Not yet. But alert. I knew the purchase had cost $82 million before renovations and consolidation. I also knew the funds had come from my company's sale proceeds. At least I thought I knew. I picked up the page. It looked authentic. The banking codes were correct. The reference number format was correct. The receiving account was correct. Evan watched my eyes. You recognize it. I recognize a bank document. You recognize the transaction. I recognize the property purchase. Our father's company paid for it. No. It's right there. No, my company wired the funds through a clearing account. Mercer Pacific's clearing account. My proceeds were temporarily held by Mercer Pacific Treasury under a cash management agreement. Sabrina laughed. That is convenient. It is documented. Where? I lifted the leather case. Not here. It was a lie. Some of it was inside. But Evan had just shown me a page I had never seen before, and I was not going to reveal what I carried until I knew how much he had altered. He folded the wire confirmation. Until the court decides, no one gets exclusive use. You are using it. The family is preserving it. By drinking my wine. Sabrina's eyes shifted. That was enough. I looked at Daniel. Did they authorize staff entry? Daniel hesitated. Answer her, Evan said. The power in his voice was deliberate. Daniel's face hardened. Mr. Mercer instructed building staff to allow movers and a private inventory company upstairs. Movers. Sabrina lifted her chin. We're cataloging estate contents. Those are my contents. Some of them came from Father. Which ones? The art. The collection is mine. Some pieces were displayed in his West Vancouver house. On loan. Again, Evan said, you have explanations for everything. And you have paperwork for nothing. I have enough to freeze the asset. The elevator doors closed behind him with a soft metallic whisper. I could have shouted. I could have grabbed the key card. I could have made a scene for every camera in the lobby. Instead, I took out my phone and photographed the wire confirmation while it was still in Evan's hand. He pulled it back too late. You don't have permission to copy that. You showed it to me in a public lobby. This is private estate material. It is evidence of fraud. Sabrina stepped forward. Be careful. I looked at her. About what? Accusing people. People? My husband. My brother. Executor of your father's estate. Applicant. Her lips thinned. That word bothered both of them. Good. Evan had filed for probate 2 days before our father died. I discovered it because our father's longtime assistant, Miriam Cho, called me from the hospice parking lot. She had been crying so hard I could barely understand her. Evan had submitted an earlier will dated 6 years before, naming him executor and dividing most family assets equally between the 3 Mercer children, Evan, me, and our younger sister, Claire. But our father had signed a new will 14 months earlier. In that version, Evan received substantial assets but not control. The voting shares of Mercer Pacific were placed into a governance trust. Claire received the Whistler properties and a charitable foundation endowment. I received our father's personal investment portfolio and the right to appoint 2 of 5 directors to the family holding trust. The changes were not punitive. They were protective. Our father had discovered that Evan had pledged anticipated inheritance rights to secure private loans. He had also learned that Sabrina's family office was quietly purchasing debt from several Mercer subsidiaries. Father had not wanted to disinherit Evan. He had wanted to stop him from taking control the moment the funeral ended. He had failed by 3 days. Or perhaps he had anticipated this too. I moved toward the front doors. Evan called after me. "Where are you going?" "To my lawyer." "You should use estate counsel." "I would rather use a lawyer who represents me." "Naomi." I stopped. His voice changed. The performance softened. For a moment he sounded like the boy who used to wait outside my bedroom after our parents fought. "We don't have to destroy each other." I turned around. He looked sincere. That made him more dangerous. "You changed the locks while we were burying our father." "I protected what he built." "You are standing in what I built." "Our family made you." "No, our family nearly bankrupted me twice." His nostrils flared. Sabrina looked at the security guard, clearly embarrassed by the scene. Evan lowered his voice. "Sign the family settlement agreement. The penthouse becomes a shared asset. You receive permanent occupancy rights. No one forces a sale while you live there." I stared at him. He had already drafted a settlement agreement. Before Father's funeral. Possibly before Father's death. What else? Mercer Pacific voting rights remain with the current board. Your board. The board Father approved. The board you changed last week. He did not answer. "And in exchange," I asked. "We withdraw objections to the personal investment portfolio." "There it is. It's fair. You take my home and control the company. I keep investments already left to me. You avoid litigation." "I do not avoid litigation by surrendering before it starts." His eyes hardened again. "Then you may lose everything." I walked into the rain. My lawyer, Priya Shah, met me at her office in Bentel Center 40 minutes later. She had changed out of funeral clothes but still wore the same dark navy blouse. Her hair was pinned high and there were 3 untouched cups of coffee on the conferencing table. She listened without interrupting as I described the lobby confrontation. When I showed her the photograph of the wire confirmation, she enlarged it on her monitor. "Can you verify this transaction?" "I can verify the amount and recipient." "Can you verify the sender?" "My original records identify Mercer Treasury Services as transfer agent." "That may be the same account." "It was a pooled treasury account." "Whose money was in the pool?" "Mine, among others." Priya leaned back. "That's the problem." "It shouldn't be. In court, pooled funds create arguments, not necessarily good arguments but expensive ones." "I had a cash management agreement." "Signed?" "Yes." "By whom?" "My company, Mercer Treasury Services, and my father as chair." "Do you have the original?" "I have a copy." "Where is the original?" "In Mercer Pacific's records." Priya gave me a long look. "Records Evan controls. For now." She returned to the screen. "Do you remember the exact wording around beneficial ownership?" "The agreement said all funds remained beneficially owned by the depositing entity." "And your depositing entity was?" "North Star Root Systems." "The company you sold?" "Yes." "Does North Star still exist?" "It was dissolved after the sale." "Who retained its records?" I knew the answer before she finished asking. "Mercer Pacific Archives." Priya closed her eyes briefly. "Of course." I paced to the window. Below us, traffic moved through wet streets in slow red lines. What can he do immediately? File a certificate of pending litigation against the Penthouse. On what basis? Resulting trust, constructive trust, undocumented family arrangement, unjust enrichment. He'll throw everything at it. He'll lose. Probably. Probably? Litigation is not mathematics. He doesn't need to win today. He needs enough evidence to create a serious issue. He has one wire confirmation. He may have more. He forged it. You don't know that. I know where my money came from. You know the economic reality. Courts examine documents. I turned from the window. He offered me occupancy rights in my own home. That tells us his objective is control, not housing. He also wants the voting structure untouched. Priya nodded. He is linking the property dispute to the estate settlement. Can we get an emergency order? To restore access, yes, but we need to move carefully. He has movers inside. That helps us. He is removing art. That helps us more. It helps after the damage. Priya picked up her phone. I'll apply for an urgent injunction, preservation of property, no removal of contents, restoration of your access pending determination. Today. We can try. Try harder. She gave me a flat look. I attended your father's funeral at 9, reviewed an irregular probate filing at 11, and I am now preparing emergency chambers materials before lunch. I am trying at full capacity. I sat down. I'm sorry. No, you're not. No. Good, anger is useful if you aim it. She opened a fresh legal pad. Tell me exactly what is inside the leather case. I placed it on the table. The brass clasps opened with a sound I remembered from childhood. Father had carried the case to board meetings, bank negotiations, and once to my university graduation because he refused to leave a refinancing memorandum in the hotel safe. Inside were 6 folders. A sealed envelope. A black ledger. A USB drive. And a handwritten note. Priya reached for the note. I stopped her. It was addressed to me. Naomi. If Evan moves before the will is filed, do not argue with him about intention. Intention is where liars hide. Follow the title. Then follow the debt. RM. Priya read it twice. What does follow the title mean? My name is on the Penthouse title. That seems obvious. My father did not write obvious things. And follow the debt? I don't know. She looked through the folders. The first contained the new will. The second contained trust amendments. The third contained director resolutions. The fourth contained correspondence between father and an accounting firm. The fifth was labeled Coal Harbor. Priya opened it. Inside were copies of the purchase contract, transfer tax filings, renovation invoices, insurance documents, and strata correspondence. At first glance, everything supported me. Then Priya reached the final page. Her expression changed. What? She rotated the document. It was a declaration signed 9 years ago. I recognized my signature. I did not recognize the paragraph above it. The declaration stated that I held title to the Penthouse as nominee for the Mercer Family Property Trust. I read it once. Then, again. My mouth went dry. I never signed this. That appears to be your signature. I signed a renovation authority that week, not this. Could the page have been substituted? Yes. Do you have the original renovation authority? Somewhere. Where? Possibly in my home. The home Evan controls. I stood so quickly the chair struck the wall. He put this in father's case. Or your father found it. He wrote follow the title, maybe he knew. Priya held the page up to the light. The signature may be genuine. It is genuine. The document may still be fraudulent if the text was altered before or after signing. The paper looks consistent with the date. The ink? We'll need an expert. I took a photograph. Priya slid the document into a clear evidence sleeve. This changes the immediate risk. How? If Evan has the original or another copy, his claim is stronger than I thought. It is fake. Fake documents can still create real injunctions. My phone rang. Claire. I answered. Her voice was low. Where are you? With Priya. Even called me. What did he say? That you're refusing Father's final wishes. Did he mention changing my locks? He said the penthouse is family property. Do you believe him? Silence. That hurt more than I expected. Claire. I don't know what to believe. You have been inside that penthouse for Christmas, birthdays, and charity dinners. Did Father ever call it his? No. Did he ever say you owned 1/3? No. Did Evan? No. Then why are you confused? Because Evan sent me documents. Priya looked up sharply. What documents? I asked. Trust declaration, bank transfers, a letter from Dad. What letter? Claire hesitated. It says he placed the penthouse in your name because you were going through a divorce and he wanted to protect the family's interest. I gripped the phone. I was never married. I know. I was never going through a divorce. I know, Naomi. Then the letter is fake. It has Dad's signature. So does every birthday card he ever sent. Signatures can be copied. He also says the property was intended for all three of us. Send it to me. Evan told me not to distribute estate documents. Claire. I'm sending it. The email arrived 30 seconds later. Priya opened the attachment. The letter was printed on Father's personal stationery. It was dated 11 years earlier, 3 weeks before the penthouse purchase. Naomi is acquiring the Cole Harbor property as nominee for the family. The use of her name is temporary and should not be interpreted as a gift or advancement. Beneficial ownership remains equally divided among my children. The signature looked perfect. Too perfect. I had watched my father sign hundreds of documents. His final stroke usually angled upward when he was impatient. This one did too. Priya read the letter closely. Any obvious factual errors besides the divorce reference? The divorce reference isn't in this letter. So there may be another document. Or Evan paraphrased. Claire was still on the line. Did he send you anything about my imaginary divorce? No, he said Dad had written about it in supporting notes. Why would he tell you that? To explain the arrangement. No, to make the lie sound personal. Naomi, I'm not taking his side. You are hesitating. Our father is dead. Evan is executor. You have a $40 million art collection in a home that might belong to all of us. I'm allowed to ask questions. $140 million. What? The penthouse is worth $140 million. I know what it's worth. Then say the number. People become vague when they want to make theft sound polite. Claire went quiet. Finally, she said, Evan wants a family meeting tonight. Where? At the penthouse. I laughed once. It came out sharp. He locked me out and invited me to a meeting in my own living room. He says all 3 siblings should inspect the asset together. Tell him I'll attend. Priya raised one hand in warning. I ignored it. Claire exhaled. 7 o'clock. Do not sign anything. I'm not stupid. I didn't say you were. You implied it. I am telling you that Evan prepared a settlement agreement before Father's funeral. That should concern you. It does. And Claire? Yes. Do not let Sabrina touch anything else that belonged to Mom. The line disconnected. Priya folded her arms. You are not attending without counsel. Fine. You are also not accusing him of forgery until we authenticate the documents. He forged them. You believe he forged them? I know he did. You also believe the wire came from your company. The account information suggests a more complicated path. I looked at her. She continued calmly. I am not doubting you. I am separating facts from conclusions. That is how we keep you from being baited. What did Father mean by debt? We need the ledger. We opened the black book. Most pages contained handwritten notes about loans between Mercer entities, dates, interest rates, collateral packages, personal guarantees. Father's handwriting grew less steady in the final pages. One entry was underlined twice. EM facility, secured against expectancy plus offshore receivables. Another line appeared below it. Purchaser of debt unclear. S family? Priya tapped the initials. EM is Evan. S family is Sabrina's family. And expectancy likely means inheritance. I turned the page. There were references to a lender called Calder Bridge Capital. I knew the name. A private credit fund based in Toronto with offices in Vancouver, London, and Singapore. Aggressive, discreet, and famous for lending against assets traditional banks would not touch. How much does Evan owe them? At least 600 million, Priya said. Why would he borrow that much? To purchase something. Or cover losses. We kept reading. There were no complete explanations, only fragments. Hotel acquisition. Margin call. Cedar port option. Family control event. Priya stopped. Family control event. My father's death. Possibly. I sat back. Evan borrowed against an expected inheritance. If the new will limits his control, he cannot repay. So he needs the old will admitted. And he needs more assets treated as part of the estate. Your Penthouse. 140 million is not enough to cover 600. No, but it may be collateral. The sealed envelope was addressed to Priya. She looked startled. I didn't know he had prepared anything for me. She broke the seal. Inside was a single page and a small brass key. Priya read silently. Then again. What? She handed me the page. Miss Shaw, if this letter reaches you, assume my son has attempted to rely upon the 2019 will. Do not begin with capacity. Do not begin with undue influence. Begin with delivery. The executed 2025 will was not left in my residence, office, or solicitor's vault. It was deposited where Evan cannot lawfully access it without proving the very fact he intends to deny. The key accompanies this letter. Richard Mercer. Priya turned the brass key over. No bank name. No box number. Nothing. Maybe the USB drive. The drive was encrypted. The only visible file was named Read. Priya connected it to an isolated laptop. A password prompt appeared. Below it was a hint. The first thing I bought that even could not sell. I stared at the screen. Priya said, "What was the first thing your father bought?" A warehouse. Could Evan sell it? Eventually. A car. Father bought a used Ford before Evan was born. So not that. A share? He bought company shares when he was 23. Could Evan sell them? If he inherited them? We sat in silence. Rain struck the windows. Then I remembered something Father had told me when I was 12. We had been standing in the original Mercer warehouse, surrounded by rusted containers and the smell of oil. He pointed to a narrow strip of waterfront outside. People think I bought the warehouse first, he had said. I didn't. I bought the debt attached to the land. Once I owned the debt, the building came to me. I looked at Priya. The first thing he bought was debt. What debt? A mortgage note on the original warehouse. Could Evan sell it? The note was discharged decades ago. Then it no longer exists. Unless Father kept something symbolic. Priya studied the brass key. Safety deposit box. At which bank? The lender on the warehouse mortgage. I called Miriam. She answered immediately. Naomi, do you remember which bank financed Father's first warehouse? I wasn't working for him then. Check the archives. I can't. Why? A pause. Evan terminated my access this morning. Of course he had. Do you remember hearing the bank's name? Pacific Dominion Trust, maybe. It merged years ago. With whom? I don't know. Priya was already searching a corporate registry database. Pacific Dominion Trust merged into Crown Western Bank, then Crown Western was acquired by Royal Dominion. I stood. Father banked with Royal Dominion Private Wealth. Which branch? Burrard Street. Priya picked up the key. We go now. At 6:30 that evening, we stood inside the private banking floor of Royal Dominion, where the carpets were thick enough to swallow footsteps. A vice president named Thomas Bell examined the brass key, then checked a secure system. His face revealed nothing. Mr. Mercer maintained several facilities. Was one accessible by this key? Priya asked. I cannot disclose that without proper authorization. Priya handed him the letter from Father. He read it. This is not sufficient. What is sufficient? I asked. A grant of probate, joint access authority, or a court order. Evan is applying for probate using an outdated will. I cannot comment. Can you confirm whether a box exists? No. Can you confirm whether my father visited this branch recently? No. Priya leaned forward. Mr. Bell, we have reason to believe an executed testamentary instrument may be stored in your custody. There is an active risk that another party will seek probate on an earlier will. He looked at her. That is a serious allegation. It is a serious situation. Thomas Bell folded the letter. I can escalate this to legal. How quickly? I cannot promise. Tonight, I said. He looked at me, Miss Mercer. My brother changed the locks on my home before lunch. He has produced documents claiming my title is fraudulent. He has filed an earlier will. Every hour helps him create a false status quo. Thomas's expression shifted slightly. It's not sympathy. Recognition. Perhaps he had dealt with Evan before. He stood. Wait here. He returned 20 minutes later with the bank's regional counsel on a video call. The lawyer asked questions. Where had the key come from? Who opened the envelope? Was the letter original? Did we consent to the bank preserving any relevant materials pending court direction? Yes. 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 Finally, the lawyer said, the bank can place an administrative hold on access to any facility associated with the deceased for 72 hours while the parties seek directions. Has anyone attempted access? Priya asked. The lawyer paused. I cannot disclose transactional details. That means yes, I said. The screen remained silent. Was it Evan? We cannot disclose. When? We cannot disclose. Thomas Bell looked down. That told me enough. Evan had already come here. Maybe he had the box number. Maybe he had another key. Maybe he had been refused. Or maybe he had accessed a different box and removed something before the hold. Priya thanked the lawyer and ended the call. Outside the bank, evening traffic crowded Burrard Street. We need to attend the meeting, I said. Priya checked her phone. The injunction application is scheduled tomorrow morning. That is too late. It is what we have. At least the bank is frozen. For 72 hours. We arrived at the Penthouse at 7:12. This time the private elevator accepted Priya's temporary access card because Evan had instructed management to admit all beneficiaries. The doors opened directly into my living room. I barely recognized it. White inventory tags hung from paintings, sculptures, cabinets, and even the grand piano. 2 men in gray uniforms photographed my furniture. 3 wine bottles stood open on the kitchen island. My father's board chair, Malcolm Reed, sat near the windows. Claire stood by the fireplace. Sabrina wore my mother's earrings and held a folder. Evan occupied my chair. He did not stand when I entered. You're late. I looked at the movers. Leave. Evan said they stay. I raised my phone. I am recording. Sabrina frowned. You need consent. Not under these circumstances. Priya stepped beside me. For clarity, my client objects to the presence of all inventory personnel, the removal or handling of any property, and Mr. Mercer's continued exclusion of her from the residence. Evan nodded toward the sofa. Sit down. I remained standing. He opened a binder. We're here to resolve matters privately. No, you are here because you think a room you stole gives you leverage. Claire closed her eyes. Can we not start like this? I turned to her. He started at the lock. Malcolm Reed cleared his throat. We all understand emotions are high. Why are you here, Malcolm? As an observer. For the board. For the family. You have never acted for the family. Evan's hand flattened on the binder. Enough. No, you do not command me in my home. He pushed a document across the coffee table. Then prove it's yours. It was another copy of the nominee declaration. Priya did not touch it. Evan continued. We have the declaration, the wire transfer, your father's letter, internal accounting entries, and witness testimony. What witness? Malcolm shifted in his seat. I looked at him. He avoided my eyes. You. He sighed. Richard told me the penthouse was intended as a family legacy property. When? Several times. Dates. I don't recall exact dates. Before or after I purchased it? After. How long after? I'm not sure. Did he say I held it in trust? He said it would eventually belong to all 3 children. That is not the same thing. It is consistent with the documents, Evan said. I looked at Malcolm. Did my father ask you to testify? No. Did Evan? He asked me to tell the truth. Did he offer you the chairmanship after probate? Malcolm's face reddened. Claire looked at him sharply. Evan stood. That is irrelevant. It is corruption. It is governance continuity. It is payment. Priya placed one hand lightly on my arm. A warning. I stopped. Evan opened another folder. This is the settlement agreement. The penthouse remains available for family use. Naomi receives exclusive occupancy for life. Claire and I retain beneficial interests. No sale without unanimous consent. And the company? Priya asked. The current board continues for 5 years. Under your control, I said. The estate avoids destabilization. Claire looked at the agreement. What do I receive? 1/3 beneficial interest in the property. Can I sell it? No. Borrow against it. Only with unanimous consent. Use the penthouse. With reasonable notice. Claire's expression changed. She was beginning to understand. Evan was not giving her 1/3 of anything useful. He was using her as a moral shield. She looked at me. Did you know about this declaration? No. Is that your signature? Yes. Sabrina smiled. I continued. The signature was taken from another document or the text was substituted. That is an accusation, Evan said. It is a fact. Prove it. I will. He leaned back. Before or after the bank records disappear? The room went still. Priya's eyes narrowed. What bank records? Evan smiled faintly. North Star Route Systems records. The company was dissolved. Retention periods expired. Archives are incomplete. You destroyed them, I said. Routine document management. When? Over several years. Which records? Expert's records. Which records, Evan? He did not answer. I understood then. This was bigger than forged pages. He had been erasing the documentary trail for years. Not because Father died suddenly. Because he had been preparing for Father's death. Possibly from the moment he learned the new will existed. My phone vibrated. A message from Thomas Bell at Royal Dominion. Please contact me urgently. A court officer has arrived with an access order obtained this afternoon. I read it twice. Priya saw my face. What is it? I showed her. Evan watched us. His expression did not change. That was the worst part. He already knew. Priya stood. What order? Evan closed the binder. A preservation order. For the bank facility. To prevent removal of estate property. You obtained it without notice? Emergency circumstances. On the basis of which will? The valid will. The 2019 will. The only will admitted for probate. No will has been admitted, Priya said. The application is pending. You represented yourself as executor with authority. I am named executor. You omitted evidence of a later will. I have seen no authenticated later will. I gripped the back of a chair. The bank had placed a hold. Evan had anticipated the hold. He had obtained a court order. If the order authorized access, the bank might be forced to open the box in the presence of a court officer. And if Evan controlled what was identified as estate property, he might see the executed will before we did. Or claim the box was empty. Or replace its contents. I looked at Priya. We need to go. Evan rose. You can stay. No. You're part of the inspection. What inspection? The bank facility will be opened at 8. Claire stared at him. You didn't tell me. You didn't need to know. Her face hardened. Evan continued. All beneficiaries may attend. He walked toward me and lowered his voice. Our father wanted transparency. Our father hid the will from you. For the first time all evening, real anger flashed across his face. You don't know what he hid. I know he was afraid you would destroy it. You always thought you were the clever one. No, father thought you were dangerous. His smile returned, but it was thinner now. Then let's see what he left in the box. At Royal Dominion, a sheriff's officer, 2 bank lawyers, Evan's estate counsel, Priya, Claire, and I crowded into a secure conference room. Sabrina was not permitted inside. Evan looked irritated by that. Thomas Bell placed a sealed metal container on the table. This container was removed from Safety Deposit Facility 774 and under the supervision of the court officer. The access log will be preserved. Priya examined the seal. Any access in the last 30 days? Bank counsel intervened. That information will be provided pursuant to the order. The sheriff's officer read the terms aloud. The box could be opened. All contents would be photographed and inventoried. No document could be removed without agreement or further court direction. Thomas inserted a bank key. The sheriff used father's brass key. The lock turned. My pulse hammered. Inside were 3 items. A red envelope, a property title certificate, and a small digital recorder. No will. Evan exhaled softly. Not relief. Satisfaction. Priya looked at me. I felt the room tilt. Father had said the executed 2025 will was deposited where Evan could not lawfully access it without proving the fact he intended to deny. This had to be the place. But the will was gone. The sheriff opened the red envelope. Inside was a notarized declaration from my father. He read the first paragraph silently, then looked up. This document concerns the Cole Harbor penthouse. Evan's posture changed. The sheriff continued reading. I, Richard Mercer, declare that I have no legal or beneficial ownership interest in the property municipally known as. Claire inhaled. I closed my eyes. Father had confirmed the penthouse was mine. The sheriff kept reading. The property was purchased entirely with funds beneficially owned by Naomi Mercer through North Star Root Systems. Any document stating that Naomi holds the property for the Mercer family is false. Evan's lawyer leaned forward. May I see that? The sheriff did not hand it over. He continued. I became aware in March 2024 that documents had been created using pages bearing Naomi's genuine signature attached to substituted text. Malcolm had not come to the bank. Sabrina waited downstairs. But I could imagine their faces when they learned. Evan said nothing. The sheriff read the final lines. I preserved the original signed renovation authority and related transactional evidence in a separate secured location. The location can be identified using the enclosed title certificate. Thomas Bell lifted the property title certificate from the box. It was not for my penthouse. It was for a narrow waterfront parcel in Richmond. The original Mercer warehouse land. On the back, Father had written a registration number. Priya looked at me. Land title office document storage. No, I said. I suddenly understood. The land had been redeveloped 20 years ago. Before the sale, Father had registered a private mortgage against it through one of his oldest companies. A debt. The first debt he bought. The first thing Evan could not sell. The registration number was not pointing to land. It was pointing to the mortgage instrument. And attached instruments could include schedules, affidavits, and deposited documents. Father had hidden the will inside a registered mortgage package in the provincial land records system. A public legal archive that Evan could not alter. Priya leaned toward the bank lawyer. We need a certified copy immediately. Evan finally spoke. No. Everyone turned. His voice was calm again. Too calm. That registration was discharged. The records remain, Priya said. Not all attachments are publicly releasable. We'll obtain a court order. Evan looked at me. You think this saves you? It proves the penthouse is mine. It proves Father believed it was yours. He identified your forged document. He made an allegation. He preserved the original. If it exists. It exists. Evan's eyes moved to the digital recorder. The sheriff picked it up. There is one audio file. Evan's lawyer objected. We should not play potentially privileged or prejudicial material without review. Priya said the order authorizes inventory. Not publication. The sheriff looked at bank counsel. After several minutes of argument, they agreed the recording could be played in the room, but not copied until further direction. Thomas pressed the button. Static filled the conference room. Then my father's voice. Weak. Breathless. But unmistakable. If you are hearing this, Evan has already claimed Naomi's penthouse. Claire covered her mouth. Evan did not move. Father continued. He will say it belongs to all 3 children. It does not. He will produce a declaration with Naomi's signature. The signature is genuine. The declaration is not. My hands began to shake. He will rely on a wire transfer from Mercer Pacific. The wire is real. The money was not Mercer Pacific's. It was Naomi's money held in Treasury custody. Priya looked at Evan. Father's breathing grew rougher. Evan believes destroying the Treasury archive destroyed the proof. It did not. A pause. Then the sentence that changed everything. The original settlement ledger is held by Calder Bridge Capital as collateral for Evan's $600 million loan. Evan surged to his feet. Turn it off. The sheriff raised one hand. Sit down. Father's voice continued through the small speaker. To obtain the loan, Evan delivered certified records proving Naomi's beneficial ownership of the purchase funds. He authenticated the records himself. No one spoke. No one breathed. Evan had given the lender the very evidence he later tried to erase. He had certified that the money was mine. He had used my asset structure to support his own borrowing. And Calder Bridge Capital held the proof. Father's recording crackled. There is one further matter. Evan's face had gone pale. The loan comes due upon a family control event. Priya whispered, your father's death. The recording continued. Evan has 48 hours from my death to satisfy the collateral call. I looked at the clock on the conference room wall. Father had died 46 hours earlier. 2 hours remained. If he fails, Father said, Calder Bridge may enforce against the collateral he pledged. Claire turned to Evan. What did you pledge? He stared at the recorder. Father answered for him. Evan pledged every inheritance right available to him under the 2019 will, together with any property he could successfully characterize as part of my estate. My penthouse. He was not trying to share it. He was trying to deliver it to his lender. Claire stood. You used me. Evan said nothing. The recorder clicked, but Father's voice returned one final time. And Naomi, if you are there, do not let him settle. The penthouse is not the asset he is truly trying to save. The file ended. Silence filled the room. Then Evan's phone rang. He looked at the screen. For the first time in my life, I saw my brother afraid. He answered. A man's voice spoke loudly enough for those closest to hear. Mr. Mercer, this is Calder Bridge Capital. The collateral deadline expires at 10 p.m. Pacific. We have completed our enforcement review. Evan stood frozen. The voice continued. Unless full payment is received, we will take control of the pledged Mercer Pacific voting shares at the deadline. My brother looked at me. And I realized the penthouse had never been his target. It was only the distraction. Evan ended the call without answering. The room remained silent long enough for the digital recorder to shut itself off. Claire was the first to move. She crossed the conference room and stood directly in front of him. You pledged voting shares you didn't own? Evan slipped his phone into his pocket. I pledged a contingent interest. You told me Father wanted us to act together. He did. You told me Naomi was trying to steal from the estate. She is protecting her own position. Claire slapped him. The sound cracked through the room. The sheriff's officer stepped forward, but Claire backed away before he could intervene. Evan touched his cheek. He looked more insulted than hurt. You're emotional, he said. Claire laughed bitterly. Our father has been dead for less than 2 days and you are about to lose control of his company to a private lender. I think emotion is appropriate. You don't understand the transaction. Then explain it. This is not the place. It is exactly the place. His estate lawyer, a silver-haired man named Jonathan Crew, closed the binder in front of him. My client should not discuss confidential financing arrangements without counsel. Priya looked at him. Your client discussed enough confidential financing arrangements to convince a court that my client's residence was an estate asset. The order was obtained on the evidence available. Evidence your client knew was false. That has not been determined. The deceased just identified the document as fabricated. A recording is not a judicial finding. No, Priya said, but it is an excellent reason to preserve every computer, email account, server, archive, and mobile device your client has touched. Jonathan's expression sharpened. We will resist any overbroad application. You can resist it in the morning. Evan turned to the sheriff. The recording should remain sealed. The sheriff shook his head. That is for the court to decide. It contains commercially sensitive information. It also concerns the basis of the order that brought us here. Evan looked at the bank lawyers. Neither offered him help. Thomas Bell carefully returned the declaration, title certificate, and recorder to the metal container. The sheriff applied a new evidence seal. I watched Evan's face. The fear I had seen during the call had vanished. He was calculating again. 2 hours. That was all he had before Calder Bridge claimed the pledged voting shares. But Father's language bothered me. Every inheritance right available under the 2019 will, together with any property Evan could successfully characterize as part of the estate. A lender could not seize something Evan did not own merely because he asserted a claim. There had to be a mechanism. An assignment. A security agreement. A court-recognized interest. Something more than the desperate promise of a son borrowing against his father's death. I looked at Priya. We need the loan documents. Jonathan answered before she could. You are not entitled to them. I was not speaking to you. You are discussing my client's confidential affairs. My property is listed as collateral. You do not know that. My father said it. Your father was not a party to the loan. He knew about the ledger. Jonathan gathered his papers, which raises serious questions about how he obtained private financial information. Evan glanced at him. It was subtle, but I caught it. Jonathan had said too much. Father had obtained something he was not supposed to see. Perhaps the loan documents. Perhaps lender correspondence. Perhaps evidence that someone inside Calder Bridge had been communicating with him. Priya saw the glance too. She closed her legal pad. We will contact Calder Bridge directly. They will not speak with you. They may speak with Naomi if her property records form part of the collateral package. They do not. You just said we don't know what's in the documents. Jonathan stood still. Priya smiled without warmth. Thank you. The bank released us shortly after 9. Evan left through a private exit with Jonathan. Claire remained in the lobby, staring through the glass doors at the rain. I stopped beside her. You can stay with me tonight, she said. I don't need somewhere to stay. You can't go home. It is still my home. He has people there. Not for long. Claire rubbed her arms. What happens at 10? Calder Bridge enforces. What does that mean? It depends on what he actually pledged. Father said voting shares. Father said pledged Mercer Pacific voting shares. Can Evan pledge shares he expected to inherit? People pledge contingent assets all the time. But Father changed the will. Yes. So Evan gets fewer shares. Possibly none directly. Then Calder Bridge gets nothing. I looked through the lobby. Across the street, a black sedan idled beside the curb. Evan sat in the back seat. Even from a distance I could see the glow of his phone. He would not be this desperate if they got nothing. Priya joined us. We have 43 minutes. Until the deadline, Claire said. Priya nodded. I've asked my office to prepare an emergency application restraining enforcement against any asset beneficially owned by Naomi. Can we get before a judge tonight? I asked. Not easily. Try. We are trying, but we need evidence that Calder Bridge intends to enforce against your penthouse or your funds. Father's recording. It helps, it may not be enough. Claire turned to me. Could you pay the loan? Priya looked at her sharply. I did not. $600 million, Claire continued. Could you cover it temporarily? Yes. The answer surprised her. It should not have. I had sold Northstar for just over $9 billion in cash and shares. I had invested aggressively but conservatively, which sounded contradictory until one understood scale. I did not keep $600 million in a checking account, but I could raise it. Priya said, You are not paying your brother's debt. I did not say I would. Claire looked between us. If paying it stops the lender from taking the company, it would also rescue Evan, I said. Maybe that's worth it. For whom? For all of us. I turned toward her. This is how he keeps winning. He creates a disaster large enough that saving the family requires saving him. So we let him lose the company? He doesn't own the company. He controls the board. Tonight, Claire's eyes filled. Father spent his entire life building Mercer Pacific. And Evan spent years borrowing against the day Father died. He is still our brother. That did not stop him from using you. It doesn't stop me from caring what happens to him. I care what happens to him. You don't sound like it. I want him stopped before he commits a crime he cannot survive. Claire looked toward the black sedan. Maybe he already has. My phone rang. The display showed a Toronto number. I answered. Naomi, Mercer. Yes. My name is Julian Cross. I'm general counsel at Calderbridge Capital. Priya stepped closer. I put the call on speaker. Julian's voice was controlled, almost expressionless. We understand you may have received information concerning a credit facility involving Evan Mercer. I received a recording from my father stating my property records were provided as collateral support. I cannot discuss our client's facility with a third party. Then why are you calling? Because Mr. Mercer has directed us to verify a proposed asset substitution. What asset? The Cole Harbor residence. Claire closed her eyes. I said I do not authorize any transfer, charge, assignment, mortgage, security interest, beneficial claim, or settlement involving that property. I appreciate your position. It is not a position. I am the registered owner. We are aware. That answer mattered. You knew my name was the only name on title. Yes. And you accepted the penthouse as collateral. I did not say that. You called to verify an asset substitution. We received documents indicating the estate may hold a beneficial interest. Documents Evan knew were fraudulent. That allegation has not been established. My father recorded a statement identifying the fraud. There was a pause. We have also become aware of the recording. Evan had called them. Or someone at the bank had. What happens at 10? I asked. Calderbridge will exercise its contractual rights. Against what? I cannot disclose that. You are threatening my property while refusing to tell me whether you claim an interest in it. We are not threatening you. You have called me 9 minutes before a deadline to verify an asset substitution involving my home. I am asking whether you intend to enter a standstill arrangement. Priya held out her hand. I passed her the phone. This is Priya Shah, counsel for Naomi Mercer. State the proposed terms. Julian did. Naomi would acknowledge that a bona fide dispute existed regarding beneficial ownership of the penthouse. She would agree not to sell, mortgage, transfer, or further encumber it. She would consent to Calderbridge registering a temporary caution against title. In return, Calderbridge would delay enforcement against Evan's pledged voting interests for 7 days. Priya listened without interruption. Then she said, "No." Claire whispered, "Priya." Priya ignored her. Julian continued. You may wish to consider the consequences. We have. Your borrower supplied you with records establishing Naomi's beneficial ownership of the purchase funds, then supplied contradictory documents claiming she was merely a nominee. That should concern your credit committee. Our due diligence was extensive. Then your due diligence exposed the contradiction. We relied on certified representations. From Evan? I cannot discuss that. Did he certify both sets of documents? Silence. There it was. Evan had authenticated records proving the money was mine because he needed the lender to understand the source and value of the family assets. Later, when he needed to pull my penthouse into the estate, he had authenticated contradictory documents. Either Calderbridge knew he was lying or it had been deceived. Neither possibility gave them a clean path. Priya continued. Any registration against the penthouse will be met with an immediate claim for slander of title, abuse of process, and knowing receipt of fraudulent documentation. We will also seek production of your entire underwriting file. Julian's tone cooled. You are making serious allegations. We are preserving serious rights. The deadline remains. Then enforce against assets your borrower owns. The call ended. Claire stared at Priya. You just let the deadline expire. Priya checked the time. Not yet. 30 seconds remained. Across the street, Evan stepped out of the sedan. He saw us through the glass. His phone was pressed to his ear. He walked toward the bank entrance. 10 seconds. 5. At exactly 10 o'clock, my phone vibrated with an email from Calder Bridge. An order of enforcement. Priya opened it. The notice was only 3 pages. It stated that an event of default had occurred. Calder Bridge had elected to enforce against pledged collateral described in Schedule C of the credit agreement. Schedule C was not attached. That tells us nothing, Claire said. Tells us they enforced, Priya replied. Evan entered the lobby. He was no longer on the phone. He came directly toward me. What did they offer you? I said nothing. A standstill. Nothing. You refused. Yes. His face tightened. You have no idea what you've done. I declined to mortgage my home to your lender. You think this is about your home? You told Calder Bridge it was available as substituted collateral. I told them the estate had an interest. You knew it didn't. You don't understand what Father did. Then, explain it. He changed the will to break the company. He changed it to stop you. He froze control across 5 trustees who hate one another. He gave board appointment rights to people with no operating experience. He tied strategic decisions to deadlock procedures. Mercer Pacific cannot function under that structure. So you borrowed $600 million to fix it? I borrowed to consolidate the port assets before the market moved. Without board approval? The opportunity was confidential. Whose opportunity? He looked away. That was answer enough. His own. Not Mercer Pacific's. You tried to acquire something personally, I said. I created a vehicle. With Sabrina's family. His head snapped back toward me. What did Father tell you? He wrote family in his ledger. That proves nothing. It proves he was watching. Father watched everyone, he trusted no one. He trusted me enough to protect the original records. He used you. The accusation was immediate and practiced. How? He put the Penthouse in your name to keep it outside the corporate group. He gave you appointment rights so you could block me. He knew you would mistake control for love. Claire stepped between us. Stop. Evan looked at her. You think she's protecting you? I think you lied to me. I simplified. You told me I owned 1/3 of her home. You may. No, I don't. We have documents. Forged documents. That has not been proven. Dad said they were false. Dad said many things in his final months. The implication hung there. Priya spoke quietly. Be very careful. Evan ignored her. He was paranoid, he was medicated, he recorded messages at night and hid papers in old security boxes. You want to treat every word as law because it benefits you. You filed his 2019 will, I said. Yes. Which means you rely on his judgment when it benefits you. That will was executed when he was healthy. The 2025 will was executed after independent capacity assessments. His expression changed. You've seen assessments. They are in Father's case. That was not entirely true. There was correspondence about assessments, but I had not yet found the reports. Evan did not know that. You should read the dates more closely, he said. What does that mean? He smiled. Ask Priya. I looked at her. She remained still, but something in her face told me she understood the threat. Evan turned to leave. Where are you going? Claire asked. To protect the company. You already lost the collateral. He stopped. No, he said, Naomi did. Then he walked out into the rain. At 10:17, Mercer Pacific's corporate secretary called an emergency board meeting for midnight. The notice cited a change of control under several shareholder agreements. Priya and I returned to her office. Claire came with us. The leather case sat open on the conference table. We reviewed every page related to the 2025 will. There were letters from Father to 2 physicians. There was an invoice from a geriatric psychiatrist. There was correspondence with a lawyer named Amelia Grant, but no final capacity report, no execution affidavit, no witness statements. Priya called Amelia. The number was disconnected. She searched the Law Society directory. Amelia Grant had retired 8 months earlier. Her practice address was a rented office in Victoria. Her forwarding information was confidential. Could Evan have reached her? I asked. Possibly. Could she be compromised? Possibly. Claire sat across from us. You both say possibly when you mean yes. No, Priya said, we say it when evidence is missing. What did Evan mean about the dates? Priya placed 3 documents side by side. The 2025 will was dated February 14. The psychiatrist's invoice was dated February 19. The physician correspondence was dated February 21. Claire frowned. The assessments happened after the will? The invoice date may not be the assessment date, Priya said. But Evan knows the sequence looks bad. I read the will again. Father's signature was firm. The witness signatures belonged to Amelia Grant and Miriam Cho. Miriam was easy to find. Amelia was not. Call Miriam, I said. She answered on the first ring. Miriam, when did Father sign the new will? February 14th. Were you there? Yes. Was Amelia Grant there? Yes. Was a doctor present? No. Had Father been assessed for capacity before signing? A pause. I believe so. You believe? Amelia arranged everything. Did you see a report? No. Did Father understand the will? Completely. How do you know? He argued about Clause 17 for 40 minutes. What was Clause 17? The deadlock mechanism for the governance trust. That sounded like Father. Precise. Combative. Obsessed with control. Did he know what assets he owned? Yes. Did he discuss the penthouse? Yes. My grip tightened. What did he say? He said it was yours and Evan would come after it. Claire looked down. Why didn't you tell us? Your father instructed me not to discuss the will until after it was filed. Why wasn't it filed immediately after he died? I thought Amelia had the original. She didn't. I called her the day before he died. She said Richard had taken it back. Where is she now? I don't know. Did Evan ever meet with her? Another pause. Miriam. I saw him leaving her office in May, 3 months after the will was signed. Did Father know? I told him. What did he do? He asked me to arrange the land title registration package. So Father moved the original will after Evan met Amelia. Not because he distrusted the validity of the will. Because he believed Evan had discovered where it was kept. Why hide it in a mortgage registration? I don't know the details. He told me only that certain documents would be deposited under a legal filing and could not be removed without a record. Who handled the filing? Conveyancing lawyer in Richmond, Daniel Coe. Priya wrote down the name. Do you have his number? Miriam gave it to us. Daniel Coe answered from home. He remembered Father. He remembered the mortgage instrument. He remembered receiving a sealed schedule. But he refused to discuss contents without reviewing his file. Priya sent him the notarized declaration and Father's letter. 10 minutes later he called back. I can confirm the registration package contained a sealed testamentary document. Contained, Priya asked tense. The package was later amended. My stomach tightened. By whom? I need to inspect the authorization. When was it amended? 3 weeks ago. Father had still been alive. Was the sealed document removed? I asked. Daniel hesitated. The electronic notation indicates a replacement schedule was deposited. Who signed the direction? I cannot say until I retrieve the archived file. Was it my father? The signature appears to be his. Appears. The word followed us everywhere. Send us the registration numbers, Priya said. I can send public references. The underlying instructions require consent or a court order. We will get one. After the call, Claire whispered, Evan found it. Maybe, Priya said. He found Amelia, I said, then he found the mortgage filing. Or someone told him. Amelia. Possibly. I began to pace. If he replaced the schedule, where is the original will? Removed, destroyed, or relocated? Father's note said it was deposited where Evan could not lawfully access it. Priya looked at the letter, without proving the very fact he intends to deny. What fact? That the penthouse is yours, Claire asked. No, I said. The answer was close but not complete. Evan intended to deny something in order to obtain the will. To access a land registration package, he needed authority, ownership, legal representation, a secured creditor's right, or a claim connected to the registered debt. I pulled the title certificate closer. The mortgage had been registered by Mercer Heritage Finance. I knew the name only vaguely. An old company father had used before Mercer Pacific existed. Who owns Mercer Heritage Finance? I asked. Priya searched the corporate database. The company was active. Its registered office had changed several times. The current shareholder information was not publicly available. But one director was listed. Naomi Mercer. I stared at the screen. I have never been a director of that company. Your appointment was filed 11 years ago, Priya said. The year I bought the penthouse. Claire leaned forward. Why would Dad appoint you without telling you? He wouldn't. Unless he did. Father had formed companies the way other people created folders. Some existed to hold a single debt, others preserved historical tax attributes, a few were shells waiting for opportunities. But appointing a director without consent was not a minor administrative act. Priya searched further. Mercer Heritage Finance held the registered mortgage. It had also entered into a custodial agreement with North Star Root Systems 11 years earlier. The same year my funds moved through Mercer Pacific Treasury. Father tied the records together, I said. The mortgage company, your sale proceeds, and the penthouse purchase, Priya replied. Claire pointed to the corporate record. What does Evan intend to deny? I knew then that Mercer Heritage Finance belongs to me. Priya looked at me. If he admits you control the company, you control the mortgage file and the deposited schedules. And the will. If he denies you control it, he may claim authority through the estate. Because he says Father owned it. Claire frowned. So to access the will as executor, Evan had to claim Mercer Heritage Finance was an estate asset. Yes. But if the company is an estate asset, then its records show Naomi owned the penthouse funds. Priya nodded slowly. Your father created a closed loop. Evan could attack the penthouse only by claiming the treasury records were family property. But to control the company holding those records, he had to treat Mercer Heritage Finance as part of the estate. And inside its mortgage registration sat the will that destroyed his executor claim. He could not lawfully access one without exposing the other. Unless he forged an authorization. 3 weeks ago. I called Daniel Coe back. Check whether the amendment direction identifies who signed on behalf of Mercer Heritage Finance. He went silent. I need the archived file. Check now. A minute passed. Then 2. When he returned, his voice had changed. The direction was signed by Naomi Mercer. My skin went cold. I did not sign it. There is a witnessed signature. Who witnessed it? Amelia Grant. Priya stood. Email us a copy. I cannot without authorization. Your authorization is on the phone telling you the signature is forged. I need legal protection. You will have it, preserve everything. Daniel promised he would. At 11:45 we entered Mercer Pacific's headquarters for the emergency board meeting. The building rose over the harbor less than a kilometer from my penthouse. Father had chosen the location because he liked seeing ships arrive. Tonight fog swallowed the water. Security escorted us to the 32nd floor. The boardroom doors were open. Evan sat at the head of the table. Malcolm Reed sat to his right. Sabrina sat behind them as an advisor, though she held no official position. 2 representatives from Calder Bridge appeared by video. One was Julian Cross. The other was a woman named Celeste Marr, head of special situations. Claire and I took seats opposite Evan. Priya sat beside me. At midnight, Malcolm called the meeting to order. He announced that Calder Bridge had delivered notices asserting control over 38% of Mercer Pacific's voting shares under enforcement rights granted by Evan. I interrupted. Evan did not own 38%. Celeste spoke from the screen. The pledged package includes directly owned shares, contractual voting proxies, conditional assignments, and enforcement rights tied to anticipated estate distributions. Anticipated under an outdated will, Priya said. The validity of competing testamentary documents remains unresolved. The valid will places voting shares into a governance trust. When admitted. Evan looked at me. The company cannot wait months for probate litigation. So you sold control before father died. I secured financing. You pledged proxies. I obtained support from shareholders who understood the need for stability. Which shareholders? Malcolm cleared his throat. 3 directors looked away. Father's ledger had mentioned a family control event. Evan had not merely borrowed against his inheritance. He had assembled voting commitments from insiders. Calder Bridge was enforcing against a package designed to function even if his inheritance failed. Celeste continued. Calder Bridge is prepared to maintain the current board and provide liquidity. In exchange for what? I asked. Orderly governance. Debt repayment. That is part of it. How much is now outstanding? Confidential. More than 600 million? No answer. Did Evan draw additional funds after father became ill? Celeste's face remained neutral. No answer again. Priya slid father's declaration across the table. This document states your underwriting file contains certified records proving Naomi's beneficial ownership of the Penthouse purchase funds. Celeste read the first page. We have reviewed the declaration. Then you know the nominee claim is fraudulent. We know conflicting evidence exists. Did Evan certify both versions? Julian intervened. This meeting concerns corporate governance. It concerns fraud used to support your collateral. Evan tapped the table. Enough. I looked at him. Did you forge my signature on the amendment direction? The room changed. Even the directors who had avoided my eyes looked up. Evan did not answer. Sabrina leaned toward him. He raised one hand to silence her. What amendment? Malcolm asked. The registered mortgage package containing father's later will was changed 3 weeks ago, I said. A direction bearing my forged signature authorized the replacement. Amelia Grant witnessed it. Evans smiled. Do you have the document? Not yet. Then you have another accusation. Daniel Coe confirmed it. His smile weakened. Daniel Coe misunderstood his file. You knew his name. Silence. I had never mentioned Daniel's name in the room before that moment. Priya turned toward the directors. Please note that Mr. Mercer identified the conveyancing lawyer associated with a document he claims not to know. Jonathan Crew, seated near the end of the table, whispered something to Evan. Evan ignored him. Malcolm called for a recess. Celeste refused. Calder Bridge requires a board resolution recognizing its voting rights. You are not getting one tonight, I said. Celeste looked directly into the camera. We already have sufficient proxies. Then why are you here? To create an orderly record. No, you need the board to ratify a transfer that may otherwise be void. Her expression did not change, but Julian glanced down. That was enough. The enforcement package was not complete. They had leverage, not certainty. I continued. You relied on Evan's anticipated inheritance. The later will defeats it. You relied on voting proxies obtained during father's incapacity. Those proxies may be revocable. You relied on a beneficial claim against my penthouse supported by forged documents, and now you want this board to sanitize the transaction. Celeste Calder Bridge has acted lawfully at all times. Then release the underwriting file. No. Release Schedule C. No. Identify the directly owned shares. No. Because there are not enough. Evans stood. You have no authority here. I reached into father's leather case and removed the governance trust amendment. I have the right to appoint 2 directors upon a family control event. The trust is not operative. It became operative at father's death. The shares have not transferred. The appointment mechanism is independent of probate. Jonathan stood. That is an aggressive interpretation. Priya handed copies around the table. It is the text. Malcolm read the clause. His face tightened. The amendment allowed me to appoint 2 interim directors immediately upon Father's death to preserve governance pending formal transfer. Father had anticipated delay. He had anticipated Evan. I placed 2 signed appointment notices on the table. One appointed Priya. The other appointed Claire. Claire stared at me. You appointed me. Father gave me the right. You didn't ask. No. Why? Because you still care whether Evan survives this. She looked at him. Then at the directors. That may make me the only person in this room qualified to stop everyone from destroying each other. Malcolm objected. Calder Bridge objected. Jonathan objected. But the corporate secretary reviewed the amendment and confirmed the appointments were facially valid. For the first time that night, the balance shifted. Not enough to defeat Evan. Enough to delay him. Claire took her seat as a director. Priya did the same. The board now had 11 voting members. Evan controlled 5. We controlled 4. 2 remained uncertain. One was Dr. Samuel Holt, Father's oldest friend. The other was Lillian Park, former chief financial officer of Mercer Pacific. Lillian had been silent throughout the meeting. Now she opened a red folder. I received this from Richard 6 weeks ago. Evan stared at her. She removed a sealed affidavit. He instructed me to disclose it only if Calder Bridge asserted voting control. Celeste leaned toward her camera. We object to the introduction of undisclosed material. Lillian ignored her. The affidavit described a series of unauthorized transfers from Mercer Pacific subsidiaries into an acquisition vehicle controlled by Evan and Sabrina's family office. Total exposure, $980 million. Claire whispered, almost $1 billion. Lillian continued. Richard believed the $600 million Calder Bridge facility was used to conceal part of the shortfall. Evan's face went white again. Malcolm turned toward him. Is that true? No. Lillian placed bank reconciliations on the table. These are copies. The originals were delivered to an external forensic accountant. Who? Priya asked. Lillian looked at me. North Star Forensic Advisory. The name meant nothing at first. Then I remembered the USB password hint. The first thing I bought that Evan could not sell. Debt. North Star had not been only my old company name. Father had reused it. A private forensic firm held the records. Lillian handed me a card. On the back was a password. I entered it into the encrypted USB drive. The screen filled with folders. Bank records. Emails. Loan agreements. Wire instructions. Scanned signatures. And a video recorded by Father 4 days before his death. Before we could open it, the boardroom doors burst inward. 2 uniformed officers entered with a court-appointed investigator. The investigator held a warrant. For Evan Mercer and Sabrina Vale Mercer. Sabrina stood so quickly her chair fell backward. Evan did not move. The investigator continued. This warrant concerns suspected fraud, falsification of corporate records, obstruction of testamentary administration, and unauthorized transfer of company funds. Claire covered her mouth. Malcolm stared at Evan as if seeing him for the first time. The officers approached. Evan looked at me. You think Father gave you everything? No. He gave you a trap. For you. For all of us. The officers took his phone. Then his laptop. Then they placed him under arrest. As he was led toward the doors, he twisted back. Open the video, Naomi. I said nothing. His eyes fixed on the USB drive. Open it and ask yourself why Father recorded it before I changed the mortgage schedule. The officers pulled him away. Sabrina shouted at Jonathan to do something. Claire began crying. Calder Bridge disconnected from the video call. The boardroom slowly emptied until only Priya, Claire, Lillian, and I remained. On the laptop screen, Father's final video waited. I clicked play. He appeared in his West Vancouver study, thinner than I remembered, wrapped in a gray sweater. Naomi, he said, if Evan has been arrested, then the first half of my plan worked. Priya and I exchanged a glance. Father leaned closer to the camera. The documents against Evan are real, but he did not begin the fraud. Lillian went still. Father continued. He was recruited into it. A photograph appeared on the screen. It showed Sabrina, Celeste Marr of Calderbridge, Malcolm Reed, and a fourth person entering a private dining room in Toronto. The fourth person was Amelia Grant, father's former lawyer, the witness to the 2025 will. The plan was to move Mercer Pacific control through Evan, father said, then remove him once the lender held enough votes. Claire whispered, "They used him." "Yes," father said from the recording as if answering her. "But Evan discovered their plan, that is why he altered the mortgage schedule." I stared at the screen. "He did not remove my will to destroy it," father continued. "He removed it because the original contains a codicil identifying the person who authorized the entire scheme." A scanned image appeared. The codicil bore father's signature. Below it was the name of the person he accused. I stopped breathing. It was not Sabrina. Not Celeste. Not Amelia. Not Malcolm. It was Lillian Park. I turned. Her chair was empty. The red folder lay open on the table, and the USB drive containing father's evidence was gone. I ran to the boardroom doors. The corridor outside was empty. The elevator indicator showed 29, then 28, dropping fast. "Security," I shouted. Priya was already on the phone. "Lock down the building. Lillian Park has removed evidence connected to an active criminal investigation." Claire stumbled out behind us. "She was just here. She planned her exit," Priya said. "The arrest created cover." The elevator reached 23. I pressed the call button repeatedly, though I knew it would not bring the car back. At the far end of the corridor, a service door swung slowly shut. I ran toward it. The stairwell smelled of concrete and cold air. Footsteps echoed below. "Lillian." No answer. I started down. My heels slipped on the first landing. I kicked them off and left them beside the railing. 29. 28. 27. The footsteps below stopped. I stopped too. For 1 second, the entire stairwell was silent. Then a door slammed 2 floors beneath me. I ran harder. When I reached the 25th floor, the service corridor was dark except for emergency lights. A cleaning cart stood abandoned near the elevators. The service elevator doors were closing. I caught a glimpse of Lillian inside. She was no longer holding the red folder. She held only her handbag. "Lillian." Her eyes met mine. She pressed a button. The doors sealed between us. I hit the call panel. Nothing. A sign above it read "Restricted Freight Access." Priya arrived behind me, breathing hard. "Building security has disabled all public exits." She used the freight elevator. "They're locking the loading dock." Claire leaned against the wall. Why would father accuse her? "Because she was involved," I said. "No, why would she give us evidence against Evan if she was involved?" "To make herself look like a whistleblower." Priya looked toward the service elevator. "Or to direct the investigation toward him." The indicator above the doors showed P4. Underground parking. We ran back to the stairwell. By the time we reached the parking level, 2 security guards were blocking the vehicle ramp. A black Range Rover accelerated toward them. One guard jumped aside. The other struck the hood with his flashlight. The vehicle did not slow. It shot up the ramp and disappeared into the rain. "Was that hers?" I asked. The guard stared after it. "Registered to Mercer Pacific." "Which executive?" He checked his tablet. "Chief Financial Officer's fleet." Lillian had retired from that position 3 years earlier. She still had access to the car. Of course she did. The building security director arrived moments later. He pulled camera feeds onto a wall monitor. Lillian appeared on one screen leaving the freight elevator. On another, she entered the Range Rover. She carried her handbag and a thin black object. The USB drive. "Track the vehicle," Priya said. The security director shook his head. "Fleet tracking is managed through corporate operations." "Who controls corporate operations?" He hesitated. "Mr. Mercer's office." "Evan." "Or the people who had been using him." I called the investigator who had arrested Evan. Her name was Rachel Dunn. She answered from the courthouse intake area. "Miss Mercer, this is not a good time. Lillian Park stole the evidence drive." A pause. "What evidence drive?" "The one father described in the recording. It contains bank records, loan agreements, emails, and a final video identifying Lillian as the person who authorized the scheme. Where are you? Mercer Pacific Headquarters. Do not leave. She already did. Do not pursue her. She is in a company Range Rover. Send me the plate. The security director provided it. Rachel read it back. We'll circulate the vehicle. What about Evan? He has invoked his right to counsel. Tell him Lillian took the drive. I am not carrying messages between family members. She may be working with Calder Bridge. That is already under investigation. Then you knew. We had suspicions. You arrested Evan in the middle of a board meeting and left Lillian in the room. We did not know she had access to evidence. She handed us the evidence. That was not communicated to my team. Your team entered 40 seconds later. Rachel exhaled. Miss Mercer, secure whatever remains. Do not confront anyone. We will send officers. The call ended. We returned to the boardroom. The red folder still lay on the table. Inside were copies of bank reconciliations, but the affidavit Lillian had displayed was gone. So were 3 pages from Father's declaration. Priya photographed everything before touching it. Claire stood beside the laptop. Could the USB contents have copied onto this computer? Priya checked the file history. No, it was opened directly from the drive. What about temporary files? Possibly fragments. She called her firm's digital forensics team. I replayed the portion of Father's video that remained cached. The recording froze after Lillian's name appeared. Then the application crashed. When I reopened it, the file was gone. Not merely unavailable. Gone. A message appeared on the screen. Remote session terminated. Priya looked over my shoulder. The drive had a remote management function. Lillian wiped it. Or someone did. Can we recover the cache? My team will try. Claire sat down. She knew exactly what would happen. Yes. No, I mean Father. I looked at her. He said the first half of his plan worked if Evan was arrested. That means he expected the evidence to trigger an arrest. And he expected someone to move afterward. Lillian. Maybe. Claire's voice shook. He used Evan as bait. He used all of us. Priya closed the laptop. Your father designed contingencies. That does not mean he controlled every outcome. He recorded a video naming Lillian. He may have expected her to reveal herself. By stealing the evidence. Possibly. Claire laughed without humor. You sound like him now. Priya ignored that. We need to determine what the USB contained, what remained elsewhere, and why Lillian needed the physical device if she could wipe it remotely. Because the drive itself contains something, I said. Encryption hardware? A key. Priya nodded. Or credentials. The first thing Father bought that Evan could not sell. Debt. The mortgage. The registered package. The Penthouse records. Every clue had led to another system of control. Father never trusted one document. He built chains. If Lillian had taken the USB, she did not necessarily have the evidence. She might have taken the map to it. I opened the leather case again. One folder remained unopened. The 6th. It was labeled Port Grey. I knew the name. Port Grey was a deepwater terminal proposal south of Prince Rupert. Mercer Pacific had studied the project for years but never announced an acquisition. Evan had mentioned a port opportunity. Father's ledger contained Cedar Port option. I opened the folder. Inside was an unsigned purchase agreement between Cedar Meridian Infrastructure and Port Grey Terminals Limited. The proposed price was $1.8 billion. Cedar Meridian's directors were Evan and Sabrina. A financing summary listed 3 sources. $600 million from Calder Bridge. $400 million from Vale Family Office, Sabrina's family. $800 million from Mercer Pacific affiliates. The final amount was described as bridge liquidity pending control event. Claire read it over my shoulder. Evan was going to use company money to buy the terminal through his own vehicle. Yes. Then sell it back to Mercer Pacific? Or force Mercer Pacific to assume the debt? Priya turned the page. A side letter granted Calderbridge the right to acquire Cedar Meridian for $1 if the control event financing failed. Claire stared at the clause. They were going to own the port. Possibly Mercer Pacific, I said. Why would Evan agree to that? Because he believed he would control Mercer Pacific after Father died. He thought he could repay the bridge funds. Priya examined another document. This signature is Lillian's. The page was a liquidity certification. Lillian, acting as former CFO and special advisor, had certified that Mercer Pacific subsidiaries could provide $800 million without breaching debt covenants. She had given Calderbridge the corporate comfort it needed. Father was right. She had authorized the structure. But the signature raised a new question. Why did she need Evan? Claire asked. To create the acquisition vehicle. She could not control him. Maybe she thought Sabrina could. Priya found an email printout. From Lillian to Celeste Marr. Subject, sequence. The body contained only 4 lines. EM signs facility. RM event triggers control. Legacy will supports asset pool. After stabilization, remove EM for cause. Claire read the message twice. They planned to remove Evan. Yes. And he found out. That's what Father said. So he altered the mortgage schedule to protect the real will. I looked at the forged authorization in my mind. My signature. Amelia's witness statement. 3 weeks ago. If Evan wanted to protect the will, why use my forged signature? To move it without alerting Lillian. Or to take it for himself. Priya pulled the next page. It was a handwritten note from Father. Evan now understands Calder's endgame. He believes possession of codicil gives leverage. He does not understand codicil is evidentiary, not dispositive. Claire frowned. What does that mean? The codicil identifies wrongdoing, Priya said, but it may not change the inheritance. Then why risk everything to get it? Because it could destroy the people controlling his debt. I thought about Evan at the bank. His fear when Calderbridge called. His insistence that I did not understand what Father had done. His last words before arrest. Open the video. He knew what was on it. Maybe he wanted us to see Lillian's name. Maybe his theft of the will had not been an attempt to erase Father's plan. Maybe it had been an attempt to survive it. An officer arrived with 2 constables and began taking statements. By 2 a.m, the Range Rover had been found abandoned beneath the Granville Bridge. The driver's door was unlocked. Lillian's phone lay on the passenger seat. Her handbag was missing. There was no blood. No sign of struggle. A traffic camera showed her entering a dark sedan 8 minutes after abandoning the vehicle. The sedan's plate had been obscured. Rachel Dunn returned my call at 2:20. We believe the second vehicle was waiting for her. Calderbridge. We don't know. Sabrina's family? We don't know. Amelia Grant. We don't know. You seem to know very little. We know enough to advise you to use security. I already have building security. I mean personal protection. That landed differently. Do you believe I am in danger? We believe someone has spent years manipulating corporate records, estate documents, and financial transactions involving very large amounts of money. That is not an answer. It is the answer I can give. Did Evan say anything? No formal statement. Informally? Rachel paused. He asked whether Lillian had taken the drive. He knew she would. Maybe. He told me to open the video. We're aware. Did you tell him she escaped? No. Tell him. I cannot take instructions from you about an accused person. He is not only an accused person, he is a target. That does not remove his rights. Rachel. Her tone softened slightly. I will ensure his counsel receives relevant safety information. At 3:10, Priya's forensics team recovered fragments from the laptop. Not the full USB contents. Not the video. But they found a credential file containing access references to 3 external repositories. One belonged to Northstar Forensic Advisory. One belonged to a legal document vault in Victoria. The third was an internal Mercer Pacific archive called Orpheus. I had never heard of it. Neither had Claire. Priya searched the corporate IT inventory. No Orpheus system appeared. We called the chief information officer. He had heard the name only once. Father used it for an offline archive established after a ransomware attack 6 years earlier. Where is it stored? I asked. I don't know. Who administered it? Lillian. Of course. Who else had access? Your father, possibly Miriam, maybe Evan. Maybe? The archive predates my appointment. Can it be accessed remotely? No, that was the point. Then Lillian needs the USB as a physical authentication key. That would make sense. Where is the archive? I don't know. Find out. At 4 a.m, Claire fell asleep on the conference room sofa. Priya remained at the table reading Calder Bridge filings. I stood by the window and watched the city dissolve into rain. My penthouse was visible across Cole Harbor. Lights burned on both levels. Someone was still inside. Movers. Security. Sabrina's people. Perhaps investigators. The place looked close enough to touch. I'd spent 11 years making it mine. Not only purchasing it, designing it. Choosing the stone for the fireplace. Arguing with engineers about the cantilevered staircase. Installing a private library where the second kitchen had been planned. Planting Japanese maples in containers on the upper terrace because Father said they would never survive the wind. They survived. He had been wrong. Now every room was tagged as evidence in a war I had not started. My phone displayed a missed call from an unknown number. Then another. Then a text. You have the wrong enemy. I showed Priya. She copied the number. Could be Evan. He does not have his phone. Could be someone acting for him. Another message arrived. Lillian did not take the codicil. Call it, I said. Priya shook her head. We preserve the message and give the number to police. I called anyway. A woman answered. She sounded older. Naomi? Who is this? You need to listen carefully. Amelia? Silence. Then do not use names. It is you. I witnessed your father's will. Where are you? That is not important. It became important when you witnessed a forged authorization bearing my signature. Her breathing changed. I did not know the signature was forged. You watched me sign? No. Then how did you witness it? Evan brought the direction already signed. He said you had executed it in Toronto and required remote confirmation. That is not witnessing. I know. You committed fraud. I made an error. You helped remove Father's will. I helped replace a sealed schedule. With what? A copy. A copy of the will? No. What did you deposit? A revocation. The word hit like cold water. What revocation? A signed declaration from your father stating the February will was revoked. Father did not revoke it. I saw his signature. You saw what you wanted to see. I had acted for Richard for 22 years. And then you met Evan. I was trying to protect the estate. By helping him remove the only valid will. Evan told me Richard's capacity had deteriorated. He showed me medical notes. He said the February document would trigger litigation and destroy Mercer Pacific. You witnessed it. You knew Father understood it. At the time. He declined quickly. He argued over Clause 17 for 40 minutes. Amelia went quiet. Miriam had told us that. Perhaps Amelia remembered it too. What did Lillian take? I asked. The authentication drive. For Orpheus? A sharp breath. So she knew the name. Where is it? I don't know. Where is the archive? I don't know. Why call me? Because Lillian is not trying to destroy your father's evidence. What is she doing? Opening it. For whom? I don't know. You know more than that. She believes Richard hid the original Port Grey ownership ledger inside Orpheus. What ledger? The ledger showing who truly funded Cedar Meridian. We know the financing sources. No, you know the stated sources. I looked at Priya. She was tracing the call on another phone through her firm's investigator. What was the real source? Amelia lowered her voice. Your money. I stopped breathing. What? North Star sale proceeds. That money is mine. Some of it was held in long-duration treasury instruments through Mercer Heritage Finance. The same company tied to the Penthouse. Yes. How much? I don't know exactly. Estimate. More than $1 billion. Claire had awakened. She sat upright, listening. I said even used my funds to finance Cedar Meridian? I don't know whether he understood the source. He authenticated the treasury records. He authenticated records selected by Lillian. Why would father leave my money under Mercer control? He didn't. Explain. Mercer Heritage Finance was transferred to you 11 years ago. I was listed as a director. You were also the beneficial shareholder. I looked at Priya. She began searching the folder again. There is no transfer document. It was deposited with the original mortgage schedule, Amelia said. The schedule you helped replace. Yes. There it was. The Penthouse was only one asset. Mercer Heritage Finance held the remaining North Star proceeds. At least $1 billion. Maybe more. Father had transferred the company to me. Evans claimed that the company belonged to the estate allowed him to reach those funds. Lillian used the confusion to redirect them into Port Grey. And the ownership proof had been hidden in the same registered package as the will. Where is the original schedule? I asked. I don't know. Yvonne took it. He said he moved it somewhere safe. Where? He never told me. Why would you believe him? Because he was frightened. Of Lillian? Of Calder Bridge. Another pause. Of Sabrina. Claire stood. Sabrina was part of it, I said. Yes. Does Evan know? He knows she was working with Calder Bridge. I don't think he knows how long. How long? Before they were married. The marriage had lasted 9 years. The scheme began before Evan became Sabrina's husband. He had not recruited her family. They had recruited him. Why did you help them? I asked. I did not understand the full structure. You witnessed a false document. I was told the change protected Richard's last competent instructions. You could have spoken to him. I tried. What happened? Lillian controlled access. Lillian was not working in Father's house. She controlled the medical team's reporting channels. She controlled the board's risk committee. She controlled who was told what. You were his lawyer. I was retired. You were still the witness to his will. I know. Her voice broke. For the first time, she sounded less like a conspirator and more like someone who had discovered too late that professional vanity had made her useful to criminals. Where are you? I asked again. I cannot tell you. Are you with Lillian? No. Calder Bridge? No. Sabrina? No. Then come to Priya's office. I can't. Why? Because they are watching my daughter. Priya looked up. Who? I don't know. You keep saying that. I received photographs. Send them? I will. Amelia, where does Lillian think Orpheus is located? She believes Richard stored it at the first operational site. The original warehouse? It no longer exists. The land remains. The archive is not on the land. Then what does first operational site mean? I don't know. I thought of Father's language. He rarely used words casually. The first thing he bought was not the warehouse. It was the debt attached to the land. The first operational site might not be the physical warehouse. It might be the first company that operated it. Mercer Heritage Finance had owned the debt, but another company had run the warehouse. I searched my memory. Mercer Coastal Storage. Amelia inhaled. Richard mentioned that name. Is the company active? I don't know. Priya was already checking. It had been dissolved 24 years earlier. But its records listed a final registered office in New Westminster, an old brick building near the river. The address now belonged to a private archival storage company, North Fraser Records. The call with Amelia disconnected. We tried the number again. It was dead. Priya's investigator traced it to a disposable phone near Victoria Harbor. By 5:15, we had the North Fraser Records property file. Father had purchased the archive company through a numbered corporation 6 years earlier, the same year Orpheus was created. We go there, I said. Priya shook her head. We send police. They may take hours. Rachel told you not to pursue anyone. We are not pursuing Lillian, we are securing Father's archive, which Lillian may already be accessing. Exactly. That is why police go first. Claire picked up her coat. I'm going with Naomi. Priya looked between us. This family has no survival instinct. We inherited that from Father, Claire said. We contacted Rachel. She agreed to send officers but warned that the address might require a warrant if the archive company refused access. I had a better argument. If Mercer Heritage Finance belonged to me and if Orpheus held its records, I had a right to preserve company property. The problem was proving I owned the company. The proof was in the missing schedule. Another closed loop. At 6:20, we arrived in New Westminster with 2 private security vehicles and Priya's litigation associate. The rain had turned to sleet. North Fraser Records occupied a low brick building between a rail line and the Fraser River. No sign identified it. A steel gate blocked the driveway. The keypad rejected every code we tried. The intercom was dead. The camera above the gate turned toward us. Someone was inside. Priya called the company's listed number. It rang through to voicemail. Then the gate opened. Slowly. No one spoke. Our security team went first. We followed through a concrete loading area lined with storage cages. The air smelled of dust, paper, and machinery. Rows of compact shelving stretched into darkness. A man in a navy uniform approached. Ms. Mercer? Yes. I'm Alan Wu, site manager. Did Lillian Park arrive? He looked confused. Miss Park has standing access. Did she arrive? About 40 minutes ago. Is she still here? I assume so. Where? Vault C. Take us there. He hesitated. Vault C is restricted under client instructions. I am the client. The account holder is Mercer Heritage Finance. I own Mercer Heritage Finance. Our records identify Richard Mercer as controlling representative. He is dead. I'm sorry, but I need documentation. Call your legal department. We do not have one. Priya stepped forward. Then call the police because they are already coming. In the meantime, preserve all access logs and disable exits. Alan looked from her to the security team. I cannot lock a client in a vault. Then take us there. He did. Vault C stood behind 2 steel doors and a biometric scanner. The first door was open. The second displayed active session. Alan entered an override code. The system rejected it. Someone disabled local administration, he said. Can you cut power? The lock fails secure. Fire release? Inside only. A small reinforced window showed the room beyond. Lillian stood at a terminal. The USB drive was inserted into a black console. She looked up and saw us. She did not appear surprised. I pressed the intercom. Open the door. Her voice came through a ceiling speaker. You should have stayed at the board meeting. You should not have taken my property. Your father's property. Mercer Heritage Finance belongs to me. Then prove it. The proof is in the schedule you helped remove. I did not remove it. You authorized the scheme. I authorized liquidity. You diverted my money. I preserved Mercer Pacific. You financed a private acquisition. Port Grey was never private. It was owned by Evan and Sabrina. Temporarily. Until Calder Bridge took it. Lillian smiled faintly. Now you are beginning to understand. Open the door. I can't. You mean you won't? No, I mean the archive has entered verification mode. Priya pressed the intercom button. What happens in verification mode? Lillian looked at the terminal. Orpheus compares all stored transaction records against the authentication drive. And then, if the records match, it releases the master ledger. If they do not, It destroys the encryption keys. Alan swore under his breath. How long? I asked. 7 minutes. Priya turned to him. Can you stop it? Not without access. Break the glass. It is rated against ballistic impact. Our security team examined the hinges and frame. No quick entry. Police sirens sounded in the distance. I looked through the glass at Lillian. You came here to destroy it. No. To open it for Calder Bridge. No. For Sabrina. Her expression changed. Small. But enough. Sabrina sent you. Lillian turned back to the terminal. She does not control me. She controlled Evan. She understood him. She married him to reach father. She married him because he wanted to be understood. Did you recruit her? No. Did Calder Bridge? Silence. Did her family? Still silence. The countdown on the terminal showed 0542. Why did father name you in the codicil? I asked. Because he needed someone to blame. He had your emails. He had selected emails. He had bank reconciliations. Prepared under his direction. You certified $800 million of company liquidity for Evan's private vehicle. I certified available intercompany capacity. Using my money. You left your funds in the system. I left them under a custody agreement. Then you should have monitored them. The cruelty of the answer was familiar. Not Evan's cruelty. Father's. The belief that failing to detect betrayal made betrayal partly your fault. You knew the funds belonged to me, I said. Yes. Claire gasped. Lillian continued. I also knew Mercer Pacific needed Port Gray. So you stole from me. I moved dormant capital into a strategic asset. An asset controlled by Sabrina. A structure that could be collapsed into Mercer Pacific after the control event. Unless Calder Bridge enforced. That was not supposed to happen. Because Evan was supposed to inherit under the old will. Yes. And father changed it. Yes. So you forged the nominee documents to pull my penthouse into the estate. No. Who did? Lillian looked toward the door. Yvonne. He says father intended it. Evan needed collateral. He created what the lender required. Did Sabrina know? Sabrina approved the legal strategy. Claire pressed closer to the glass. My sister-in-law helped forge documents against Naomi. Lillian looked at her. She did more than help. The countdown showed 4:11. What did she do? I asked. She supplied the signature source. My renovation authority. Sabrina had been inside my home countless times. She had access to family archives. She had hosted charity events with me. She had once helped me organize original contracts after a flood damaged a storage room. She could have photographed my signature on dozens of documents. Where is the original schedule? I asked. Evan has it. Where? I don't know. You expect me to believe that? I expected him to bring it tonight. Here? The authentication process requires the ownership schedule. Then how did you start verification without it? Lillian looked at the screen. I used a certified extract. From whom? Sabrina. The countdown froze. Then turned red. Verification conflict. Lillian stepped back. What does that mean? Claire asked. Alan stared through the glass. It found inconsistent records. A second countdown appeared. Key purge, 02. Lillian's composure broke. She typed rapidly. The system rejected her commands. Open the door, Priya shouted. I can't. Use the fire release. It is disabled during purge. Alan grabbed a metal cabinet from the wall and tore it open. Inside was a manual suppression control. What happens if we flood the vault? He asked. Water? Inert gas. Will it stop the server? Maybe. Will it kill her? Not immediately. Lillian heard him through the intercom. Do not trigger suppression. Then open the door, I said. I told you I can't. Where is the emergency release? She looked toward the far wall. A red lever sat behind a transparent cover. Pull it. It will terminate the session. That is the point. It may purge everything. It is purging anyway. Lillian did not move. 0122. She still wanted the ledger. More than she wanted safety. More than she feared arrest. That told me the ledger contained something she needed desperately. Not only evidence against her, leverage against someone else. Sabrina lied to you, I said. Lillian stared at the screen. The certified extract is false. No. She gave you a false ownership schedule. She had access to Evan's copy. Evan's copy may be false too. He removed the original and replaced it with a revocation Amelia witnessed, but no one has confirmed what Evan actually took. Lillian looked at me. The purge timer showed 53 seconds. Father said the codicil was evidentiary, not dispositive, I continued. He expected Evan to take it, maybe he wanted him to. Why? To expose who tried to buy it. Her face changed. Sabrina. Calder Bridge. Lillian. Any of them might have approached Evan once he possessed the original. Father had turned the will into bait. Pull the release, I said. 38 seconds. Lillian moved. Not toward the red lever. Toward the USB drive. She tried to pull it free. The console locked it in place. 29 seconds. Leave it, Alan shouted. She struck the release latch again and again. Nothing. Lillian. She turned toward me. For the first time I saw panic. Your father lied. About what? The company. What company? Mercer Heritage Finance. What about it? It was never transferred to you. Then who owns it? The purge timer reached 10. Lillian ran to the emergency lever and broke the cover. 9. 8. She pulled. The vault lights went out. A deep mechanical sound rolled through the walls. The steel door unlocked. Our security team dragged it open. Cold white vapor poured into the corridor. Lillian staggered out, coughing. Police entered behind us. Rachel Dunn ordered her to the floor. Lillian did not resist. The console inside the vault was dark. The USB drive remained locked in place. Alan entered with a respirator and emergency light. After several minutes, he returned. The server shut down before the purge completed. Are the records intact? I asked. I don't know. Can the drive be removed? Not until the system is stabilized. Rachel placed Lillian in handcuffs. As officers led her away, I stepped in front of her. You said Father lied about Mercer Heritage Finance. She coughed and looked at me through watering eyes. He told everyone a different truth. Who owns it? She smiled weakly. Ask Claire. I turned. Claire stood behind me. Her face had gone pale. What does she mean? I asked. I don't know. Lillian laughed once. Yes, you do. Rachel pulled her toward the exit. Claire backed away. Naomi, I swear I don't know what she means. Then why are you afraid? I'm not. You are. Priya looked at Claire carefully. Have you ever signed documents for Mercer Heritage Finance? No. Received distributions? No. Held shares through a trust? No. Claire shook her head harder. No. Then she stopped. A memory had reached her. What? I asked. When I was 19, Father made me sign something before he paid for McGill. What kind of document? I don't know. He said it was an education trust acknowledgement. Did you read it? No. Who was present? Claire closed her eyes. Lillian. The police recovered Lillian's handbag from the Range Rover. Inside was a second USB stick, a passport under another name, 2 phones, and a notarized share certificate. Rachel showed us a photograph. The certificate stated that Claire Mercer owned all voting shares of Mercer Heritage Finance. The date was 12 years earlier, 1 year before my Penthouse purchase. Claire stared at it. I have never seen that. Is that your signature? Rachel asked. Claire looked closer. Yes. Did you sign blank documents for your father? I signed several things. Was Lillian present? I think so. I looked at Priya. If Claire owned Mercer Heritage Finance, then Claire owned the company holding my North Star funds. The company tied to the mortgage registration. The company containing the will schedule. The company Lillian had used to finance Port Grey. My name was on the Penthouse title. But the money trail ran through a company apparently owned by my sister. Evan's claim had been false. Yet the structure underneath it was not what I believed either. Father had not transferred Mercer Heritage Finance to me. He had transferred it to Claire. Possibly to protect my funds. Possibly to control both of us. Rachel received a message from the technical team inside the vault. The server is restarting. We entered together. The terminal flickered. Orpheus loaded in recovery mode. A single file appeared. Master Ownership Ledger. Access required 2 credentials. The USB authentication drive. And the beneficial shareholder's biometric confirmation. The system displayed a name. Claire Mercer. Claire stepped back. No. You are the shareholder, I said. I didn't know. The system thinks you are. I don't want this. This is not about wanting it. Alan pointed toward a scanner. It needs her thumbprint. Rachel said, before anyone touches that system, we need legal authority. Priya nodded reluctantly. The archive may contain evidence of multiple offenses. It also contains my company records, Claire said. Possibly. And Naomi's money. Possibly. Claire looked at me. You believe me, don't you? I wanted to. She looked terrified. But so had Evan at the bank. So had Amelia on the phone. So had Lillian when the records began to purge. Fear did not prove innocence. It proved stakes. I believe you did not understand what you signed at 19, I said. That is not the same thing. No. Her eyes filled. You think I helped them? I think Father used your name. For what? To hold assets he did not want Evan to reach. And he never told me. That sounds like Father. Rachel ordered the terminal secured pending a warrant. No one would access the ledger until a judge approved the search protocol. As we left the vault, my phone rang. Jonathan Crew. Evan's lawyer. I answered. My client has authorized me to deliver a message. What message? He says the share certificate naming Claire is genuine. Claire heard him. She gripped my arm. Jonathan continued. He also says Claire has known about Mercer Heritage Finance for 6 years. That is a lie, Claire said loudly. Jonathan paused. Ms. Mercer is present? Yes. Then I will state this carefully. Evan claims Claire attended annual shareholder meetings by written resolution. I did not. He has copies bearing her electronic signature. Ford. He further claims she approved the transfer of North Star funds into Cedar Meridian. Claire went white. That is not true. Send the documents, I said. I am not authorized. Then why call? Because Evan wants to speak with both of you before his bail hearing. Why? He says Lillian was not the only person who knew the ownership structure. Who else? Jonathan lowered his voice. Sabrina. I looked toward the police vehicles outside. Where is she? That is the problem. What problem? She was released after questioning. When? 20 minutes ago. And she never arrived at the residence her counsel provided. Claire whispered, she's gone. Jonathan continued. Evan believes she has the original mortgage schedule and the executed 2025 will. Why would she have them? Because Evan gave them to her for safekeeping. My anger went cold. He gave Father's will to the woman working with Calder Bridge. He did not know the extent of her involvement. He knew enough to alter the schedule. He believed Sabrina was helping him move the document beyond Lillian's reach. Where would Sabrina take it? He does not know. Then he is useless. He says you know. I almost laughed. I do not. He says the location is connected to the penthouse. What location? He refused to tell me. He said he will tell you directly. At the bail hearing? Before it. When? 7:30. It was already 7:12. Jonathan gave me the interview room number at the provincial courthouse. Priya objected immediately. We wait for disclosure. There is no time. There is always time to avoid walking into another manipulation. Sabrina has the will. According to Evan. And she may have the original ownership schedule. According to Evan. Which determines whether Claire owns the company holding my money. Claire looked at me. We have to hear him. At 7:29 we entered the courthouse interview room. Evan sat behind reinforced glass wearing the same shirt from the board meeting. He looked exhausted. Not defeated. Jonathan stood beside him. Priya sat beside me. Claire refused a chair. Evan picked up the phone. I did the same. You have 5 minutes, I said. He looked at Claire. You finally found the certificate. You forged my approval, she said. No. I never attended shareholder meetings. You signed written resolutions. Without knowing what they were. That is still signing. You sound like father. His face tightened. Do not compare me to him. Tell us where Sabrina went, I said. She took the will. You gave it to her. I gave her a sealed package. Why? To keep it out of Calderbridge's hands. She was working with them. I knew she had contacts. I did not know she was part of the original plan. You married her. Yes. You shared a home. Yes. You borrowed $600 million from people she introduced. Yes. And you never suspected she was managing you. His eyes hardened. I suspected everyone. Not enough. Claire leaned toward the glass. Did I approve the transfer of Naomi's money? Evan looked at her for a long time. You approved a treasury restructuring. Did I know it funded Cedar Meridian? No. Claire closed her eyes. Did you know the money belonged to Naomi? Not at first. When did you learn? Last year. And you said nothing. I was already trapped. You tried to take her penthouse. I tried to create collateral before Calderbridge enforced against the company. You forged documents. I used documents prepared by Sabrina's lawyers. You knew they were false. I knew father had structured the penthouse purchase through family entities. My name was the only name on title, I said. Yes. My money paid for it. Yes. Then you knew it was mine. He looked at me. I knew you had the strongest claim. That is not an answer. It is the truth. No, it is language for people who want room to steal. He leaned closer to the glass. You think title saved you. It did not. Father made Claire the shareholder of the company that held your money. He made you director of the company that held Claire's inheritance trust. He crossed every ownership line so none of us could move without the others. Why? To prevent exactly what happened. You still made it happen. Because Lillian and Sabrina found the weak point. What weak point? Use. The answer landed harder than I expected. He continued. They knew you would never trust me. They knew Claire would sign anything father framed as protection. They knew I would rather risk the company than surrender control. And they knew father would hide the truth instead of explaining it. Where is Sabrina? Priya asked. Evan looked at me. The penthouse has a secondary title parcel. No, it doesn't. The rooftop conservatory does. It is part of the strata lot. Not the service structure above it. I stared at him. During construction, the developer had retained a narrow mechanical parcel above the penthouse. I purchased exclusive rights to use it, but I had never seen a separate title. Father bought the parcel through Mercer Heritage Finance, Evan said. Why? To secure access. To what? An old document vault built into the mechanical room. That is impossible. You renovated around it. I inspected every room. Not the service cavity behind the northern wall. My mind returned to the conservatory. The cedar panel beside the irrigation controls. A section the contractor insisted could not be removed because it concealed building systems. What is inside? I asked. Father used it for original bearer instruments and sealed agreements. And Sabrina knows. She lived in the penthouse for 3 months during your Toronto project. I looked at Claire. Sabrina had called it house-sitting. I had called it a favor. She has the access code, Evan continued. What code? The amount father paid for his first debt. I remembered the USB hint. The first thing he bought that Evan could not sell. Father had told me the story, but never the amount. How much? Evan smiled faintly. That is what he refused to tell me. Then how does Sabrina know? She found the original ledger before Lillian moved it to Orpheus. Claire gripped the table. Is Sabrina at the penthouse? She will be. Why? Because the vault contains the only document Calder Bridge cannot survive. The will? No. The ownership schedule? No. What? Evan's eyes met mine. The original agreement showing Calder Bridge funded Sabrina's family before she ever met me. He lowered his voice. They did not recruit her to control Mercer Pacific. They used Mercer Pacific to repay a debt her family already owed them. How much? $4.2 billion. The number silenced the room. The penthouse vault contains the guarantee, Evan said, signed by Sabrina's father Lillian and Celeste Marr. Priya leaned toward the phone. Why would Richard Mercer possess that agreement? Because he purchased the debt. I stopped breathing. The first debt father bought that Evan could not sell. It had never been the warehouse mortgage. That was only the story he told. Father's first strategic purchase in the final scheme was the Vale family's debt to Calder Bridge. If he owned the debt, he owned leverage over Sabrina, Lillian, and the lender. And he hid the proof in my home. Evan looked at the clock. If Sabrina reaches the vault before you, she will destroy the guarantee, the ownership schedule, and the will. How long ago was she released? 35 minutes. My penthouse was less than 15 minutes away without traffic. I dropped the phone. As we ran from the courthouse, my building's concierge called. Daniel's voice was shaking. Miss Mercer, Sabrina just arrived. Do not let her upstairs. She has an access card. Disable it. I tried. Daniel. She is already in the private elevator. Behind him, an alarm began to sound. Then the line went dead. The private elevator was already moving when we reached the building. Daniel stood behind the concierge desk with one hand pressed to his ear. The elevator stopped on 46, he said, then the system lost contact. Why 46? Claire asked. My penthouse begins on 47, I said. The mechanical level. Daniel nodded. The alarm came from the upper service zone. Priya turned to building security. Shut down all elevator movement. The security supervisor shook his head. The private car is already isolated. Then take us up another way. The public elevators reach 45, from there service stairs. We entered the nearest car with 2 security guards and Rachel Dunn, who had arrived minutes behind us with 3 officers. The ascent felt slow enough to be deliberate. Every floor number illuminated and vanished. 38. 39. 40. Claire stood beside me, pale and silent. Priya spoke into her phone, instructing her office to preserve emergency applications against Calder Bridge, Sabrina, and any person claiming an interest in Mercer Heritage Finance. Rachel checked her sidearm. I stared at the panel. The penthouse had always felt protected by height. That had been an illusion. Height only meant fewer exits. When the doors opened on 45, the corridor lights were flashing red. A fire alarm pulsed through the ceiling. No smoke. No sprinklers. Someone had triggered the system manually. The service stair door was propped open with a brass sculpture I recognized from my entrance hall. One of my belongings. Sabrina had carried it down 2 floors to block the latch. She planned a route, Rachel said. The officers moved ahead. We climbed to 46. The mechanical corridor was narrow and unfinished, lined with pipes and electrical cabinets. A service door at the far end stood open. Beyond it, a metal ladder rose toward the conservatory structure. One officer checked the landing. Clear. Rachel looked at me. You stay here. No. This is an active scene. It is my property. That does not make you bulletproof. Sabrina does not have a gun. You do not know that. I did know she owned one. A licensed handgun kept at her West Vancouver residence. Evan once complained that she practiced at a private range more often than he did. I had forgotten until that moment. She may be armed, I said. Rachel's expression hardened. What weapon? A handgun, I don't know the make. Why did you not say that earlier? Because I remembered now. Rachel motioned to the officers. One drew his weapon. The other radioed for tactical support. The alarm continued. Claire whispered, "She won't shoot anyone." I looked at her. You still believe that? She has done terrible things, that does not mean. A sharp metallic crash sounded above us. Then silence. Rachel started up the ladder. We followed despite her order. The hatch opened into the northern end of my rooftop conservatory. Cold air swept through broken glass. One of the exterior panels had been smashed. Rain and sleet blew across the stone floor. Japanese maples bent under the wind. At the far wall, the cedar service panel had been torn away. Behind it was a black steel door no wider than a wardrobe. The lock panel glowed. Sabrina stood in front of it. She wore dark trousers, a fitted coat, and leather gloves. Her hair was wet. A black pistol lay on the floor beside her. Not in her hand. Beside the pistol was a small cutting torch and a metal case filled with tools. She turned when Rachel entered. "Step away from the door," Rachel said. Sabrina looked past her at me. "You came quickly." "Move away from the vault." "It isn't your vault. It is inside my home. Your name is on the residence, not this parcel." "So Evan told me." A sad smile touched her mouth. "He finally told you something true." Rachel moved closer. "Hands where I can see them." Sabrina raised both hands. "I'm not resisting." "Step left." She did. An officer secured the pistol. Another searched her and removed a phone, a second access card, and a small folded envelope from inside her coat. Rachel placed her in handcuffs. Sabrina did not look at the officers. She looked only at me. "You need the code." "I will get a court order." "A court order will not open it. The building can cut through. The vault has a destruction protocol." Priya entered behind us. "What kind of protocol?" "Thermal force and unauthorized electrical access trigger an internal burn chamber." Claire stared at the steel door. "It destroys the documents." "Yes." Rachel said, "How do you know?" "I helped install it." That answer struck me almost physically. "You were inside my home during construction. I lived here for 3 months, remember? You were house-sitting." "I was working." "For Lillian?" "For my father." Sabrina's father, Adrian Vale, controlled a family office built from mining, commercial real estate, and political connections. He had always treated Mercer Pacific as old money pretending to be new. My father treated the Vales as debt wearing expensive clothes. I had assumed their hostility was social. It had been financial. "What is the code?" I asked. Sabrina smiled. "You don't know." "No. Richard never told you the number." "He told you." "He did not tell me Lillian found it." "Then give it to me." "Why?" "So we can preserve the evidence. Evidence that destroys my family. Your family tried to steal mine. Your father bought our debt and spent 9 years tightening it around our necks. He did not force your family to borrow $4.2 billion. No, he only made sure refinancing became impossible." Priya stepped forward. "What did Richard acquire?" Sabrina looked at her. "Distressed participation in Calder Bridge's Vale facility." "How much of it?" "Enough to block amendments." "And the original guarantee is in the vault?" "Yes." "Along with the executed will?" "Yes." "The ownership schedule?" "Yes." "And the original renovation authority bearing Naomi's signature?" Sabrina's expression changed. "Barely." "Yes." Priya looked at me. Every document we needed was behind that steel door. Every document Sabrina had come to destroy. Rachel said, "State the code." Sabrina laughed softly. "You can arrest me, you can charge me, you cannot make me remember. You came here intending to enter it." I entered the code twice. The panel showed 2 red lights. 2 failed attempts. "How many attempts remain?" Rachel asked. "1. And if the third fails?" The contents burn. The conservatory fell silent except for wind moving through broken glass. Why did your attempts fail? I asked. Because the code changed. When? I don't know. Father changed it. Probably. Then the old number does not matter. It matters because Richard always built changes from original terms. What was the original code? Sabrina looked at me. Tell me what happens if I do. You cooperate. That is not an answer. It is the only answer you get. She turned toward Rachel. I want a lawyer. You already have one, Rachel said. I want a different lawyer. That can be arranged. I also want protection. From whom? Calderbridge. You worked with them. I was useful to them. Difference? A useful person can be discarded. Claire moved closer. Did you marry Evan because they told you to? Sabrina looked at her. At first. Claire recoiled as if struck. At first. He was arrogant, impulsive, and desperate to prove he could build something without Richard. He was ideal. For what? A borrower Calderbridge could control. And then, Sabrina looked toward the rain. Then I loved him. No one spoke. The sentence sounded absurd after everything. That did not make it false. Claire said, you loved him while setting him up to lose the company. I tried to change the structure. You approved forged documents against Naomi. I approved a legal theory. You stole her signature. I provided a sample. That is forgery. I know. Her voice cracked for the first time. I know what it became. I felt no sympathy. Only clarity. People like Sabrina rarely thought of themselves as villains. They divided actions into stages so no single step felt like the whole crime. A signature sample. A legal theory. A temporary transfer. A strategic marriage. A debt extension. A family settlement. Each piece small enough to rationalize. Together they formed theft. Rachel directed an officer to take Sabrina downstairs. I stopped her. The code. Sabrina looked at me. You need more than the old amount. What else? Richard used 3 variables. Which variables? The purchase amount, the date, and the holder. The first debt he bought. Yes. What amount? $27,500. What date? October 3, 1978. Who was the holder? Pacific Dominion Trust. I repeated the information in my head. $27,500. October 3, 1978. Pacific Dominion Trust. Why did your attempts fail? I used the original formula. What formula? Amount, month, holder initials. 27,510 PDT. She nodded. The lock rejected it. Maybe Father changed the holder. Debt assignments follow holders. The first thing he bought that Evan could not sell. Father bought the debt from Pacific Dominion Trust. But who held it after purchase? He did. Or one of his companies. Mercer Coastal Storage, I said. Sabrina shook her head. That was the borrower. Mercer Heritage Finance? That company did not exist then. Priya looked at the steel door. Could he have used the current holder of the debt? The debt was discharged. Legally discharged, I said, but he kept the note. The title certificate from the bank identified the old mortgage registration. The creditor may have been Pacific Dominion. But Father's first purchase was the debt itself. The buyer was Richard Mercer. Initials RM. Amount. Date. Holder. Maybe the holder was no longer the bank. Maybe it was him. I moved toward the keypad. Rachel stepped between us. You are not entering anything until specialists assess it. Specialists cannot assess a system designed to burn the evidence. You have one attempt. Yes. And you are guessing. I am following his clues. That is still guessing. Priya examined the keypad. Could we seek technical records from the installer? Sabrina answered. The installer was a numbered company controlled by Lillian. Of course, Priya said. Where's the control module? Rachel asked. Inside the vault. External power. Redundant battery. Network connection? None. It was another closed system. Father's favorite design. Secure against intrusion. Dangerous when trust failed. Claire looked at me. What would he expect you to know? The story about the debt. Only you. He told all of us different stories. Evan knew the warehouse version. Claire had signed company documents. Sabrina knew the old formula. Father had distributed pieces. No one person could open the vault alone. That had to be the point. He wanted all three of us, Claire said. Ivan is in custody. We can call him. Rachel shook her head. You cannot involve a detained accused person in an unsupervised evidence access process. Then supervise it. She looked at Priya. Priya said it may be necessary to prevent destruction. Rachel radioed her supervisor. While she argued, I walked around the conservatory. The smashed glass had scattered across the floor. Near the cedar panel I found a narrow brass plate. It had been concealed behind the wall. 3 words were engraved into it. Claim. Custody. Control. I showed Priya. Legal title beneficial custody voting control, she said. 3 variables. Or 3 people. Naomi, Claire, Evan. My name on title. Claire holding Mercer Heritage Finance. Evan controlling the board. Father had divided claim, custody, and control among us. And we had spent 2 days fighting over which one meant ownership. The answer was none alone. I pressed the brass plate. A compartment opened beneath it. Inside was a telephone handset connected by a coiled wire. Old-fashioned. No display. No dial pad. I lifted it. A recorded message played. Father's voice. State the claimant. I froze. The system waited. Naomi Mercer, I said. A tone sounded. State the custodian. I looked at Claire. She stepped beside me. Claire Mercer. Another tone. State the controller. We both looked at Rachel. Call Evan, I said. 10 minutes later, Jonathan Crew appeared on a secured video call from the courthouse with Evan beside him. Rachel explained that the call was recorded and limited to preventing destruction of evidence. Evan looked exhausted, but the moment he saw the brass handset, his eyes sharpened. You found the 3-party lock. You knew about it, I asked. I knew it existed. Why didn't you tell us? You didn't ask the right question. Claire swore at him. Rachel warned everyone to remain focused. I held the handset near the tablet speaker. Father's recorded voice repeated. State the controller. Evan leaned toward the microphone. Even Mercer. The system emitted a low tone. Then Father said control unverified. Evan's face hardened. What does that mean? You lost control at 10, I said. Calder Bridge claimed the shares. Not lawfully. But the system does not know law. Maybe it does, Priya said. The vault might have been connected to corporate records when installed, even if currently offline. Or the prompt might not be asking for the person who claimed control. It might be asking for the lawful controller under Father's structure. The 2025 will place voting rights into a governance trust. No single person controlled it. 5 trustees did. But interim appointment rights belong to me. Try Naomi, Claire said. I spoke into the handset. Naomi Mercer. Control unverified. Priya tried. So did Claire. Each failed. No attempt affected the keypad count. This was a separate authentication layer. Father's message changed. Control is not possession. Evan closed his eyes. He said that to me. When? I asked. The week before he died. What else did he say? That I confused being obeyed with being in control. That sounds accurate. Not now, Naomi. What exactly did he say? Evan thought. He said control belongs to the person who can stop the transaction. Priya looked at me. Negative control. A veto. Under the governance trust, who could stop a transaction? The deadlock mechanism. Clause 17. The clause father argued over for 40 minutes. Miriam had remembered it. Priya opened the trust amendment on her tablet. Clause 17 required unanimous consent for any transfer of corporate treasury or family holding assets until permanent trustees were appointed. Unanimous consent meant every interim director had a veto. But father's lock required one controller. The person with designated protective veto. We read further. Clause 17 named the protective steward. Claire Mercer. Claire stared at the screen. No. You are the controller, I said. I'm the custodian, too. Maybe the categories overlap. She spoke into the handset. Claire Mercer. A different tone sounded. Then father's voice said control verified. The steel door clicked. The keypadlets turned blue. No code required. Sabrina stared at the vault. He changed the entire system. No, I said, he changed who mattered. The steel door opened inward. A narrow chamber lay beyond it. No shelves of bearer bonds. No boxes of gold. Only a table, a steel cabinet, and a document scanner. On the table sat 3 sealed packages. One marked claim. One marked custody. One marked control. A 4th envelope lay in the center. To my children. Rachel entered first and photographed everything. A bomb technician inspected the chamber and found no burn mechanism capable of destroying the entire vault. Only a small incineration compartment beneath the keypad. Sabrina had lied. Or Lillian had lied to her. The system could destroy documents inserted into the chamber. It could not burn the contents automatically. Sabrina watched the technician open the mechanism. Her face changed. Lillian said, "She wanted you afraid of failing," I said. "She told me the 3rd attempt would burn everything. She needed you to destroy the documents manually if the lock rejected you." Rachel looked at Sabrina. "So you brought the torch." Sabrina said nothing. The first package contained my original renovation authority. My genuine signature appeared beneath the correct text. Attached was a forensic report comparing it with the nominee declaration. The paper fibers differed. The toner dates differed. The signature page had been scanned, cropped, and reproduced. The nominee document was unquestionably false. The second package contained Mercer Heritage Finance's shareholder register. Claire was listed as the legal shareholder. But a declaration of trust stated she held the shares for me as beneficial owner of the North Star proceeds. Claire had legal custody. I had beneficial ownership. Father had separated them deliberately. The third package contained the governance instruments for Mercer Pacific. Evan had been granted temporary operating authority during father's incapacity. That authority terminated automatically if he pledged inheritance rights, altered estate documents, or transferred corporate funds without approval. He had done all 3. His control had ended months before father died. Every board action he took afterward was challengeable. Every proxy he granted Calder Bridge was potentially void. The center envelope contained the executed 2025 will and codicil. Priya checked the signatures. Miriam Cho. Amelia Grant. Richard Mercer. All original. The codicil did identify Lillian Park as the person who authorized the Port Grey diversion. But father had added another paragraph. Lillian acted with the knowledge and direction of Adrian Vale and Calder Bridge Capital representatives. Evan Mercer participated after learning part of the scheme, then attempted to preserve his position through false documentation and unauthorized collateralization. No one was innocent. Evan had been used. Then he became a user. The final paragraph named Sabrina. Sabrina Vale Mercer obtained Naomi Mercer's signature samples and coordinated preparation of false nominee records. She later attempted to acquire the original testamentary package, representing to Evan Mercer that she intended to protect it from Calder Bridge. I believe her actual purpose was to deliver the documents to Adrian Vale. Sabrina sank into a chair. My father told me he would protect Evan. Your father protected his debt, I said. He said Calder Bridge would destroy us. He was right. You don't understand him. I understand enough. Rachel read Sabrina her rights again, this time identifying additional suspected offenses. Sabrina asked for a lawyer. Then she asked to speak to Evan. Rachel refused. As officers led her toward the hatch, she turned to me. Adrian will not let you use the guarantee. It is evidence. It is also leverage. Against whom? Everyone. Where is he? Sabrina smiled weakly. You think I came here before him? The words chilled the room. Rachel ordered officers to search the entire penthouse. The vault contained the original Vail guarantee, but it was not on the table. We opened the steel cabinet. Empty. Only a velvet-lined indentation remained where a thick document package had once rested. The guarantee was gone. Sabrina stared at the empty cabinet. No. You expected it to be there, Priya said. Yes. Who else knew the lock? My father knew the original formula. Could he pass the voice authentication? No. Could Lillian? No. Could anyone enter without using the front lock? Sabrina looked toward the broken conservatory panel. The mechanical passage. We came through it. No, the older passage. I stared at her. What older passage? The service tunnel from the adjacent rooftop parcel. The developer had once planned a second penthouse tower. The project was cancelled, but structural connections remained between roof systems. Adrian Vail's family office had purchased the adjacent development rights 3 years earlier. Not for construction. For access. Officers searched the northern wall and found a concealed panel behind irrigation equipment. It opened into a maintenance tunnel crossing above the neighboring roofline. Fresh mud marked the floor. Someone had entered before Sabrina. Someone who did not need the 3-party lock because the tunnel reached the vault's rear service panel. The back panel had been cut and resealed. A professional entry. The guarantee was removed. Nothing else. Adrian Vail had not wanted the will. He had not wanted my ownership records. He had wanted only the document proving his family owed $4.2 billion under terms father controlled. The guarantee that could collapse the Vail Empire and expose Calder Bridge. He already has it, Sabrina whispered. Rachel called border services and airport police. Priya sought an emergency worldwide preservation order against Adrian Vail and his family office. I called Mercer Pacific Aviation. The flight department reported that a company jet had departed Vancouver 40 minutes earlier. Destination filed as Anchorage. Passenger manifest unavailable. Aircraft authority had been provided under an executive travel code belonging to Lillian Park. She gave him the code, Claire said. Or he always had it. We returned to the boardroom shortly before noon. The arrests had reached the media. News vans surrounded the building. Calder Bridge shares in its publicly traded parent had fallen 18%. Mercer Pacific lenders were demanding information. 2 port authorities suspended negotiations. Employees were receiving anonymous emails claiming the company was insolvent. It was not insolvent. But panic could make a solvent company fail. We needed governance. We needed liquidity. We needed proof. And the most dangerous piece of proof was flying north in Adrian Vail's hands. The board reconvened. Malcolm Reed attempted to remain chair. Claire moved to remove him. I seconded. Priya produced the clause terminating Evans' temporary authority and invalidating board appointments made after his breach. Malcolm had been appointed during that period. He argued the clause had never been disclosed. It was signed and effective, Priya said. It was hidden. From you. That undermines reliance. It undermines your comfort, not its validity. The corporate secretary called outside counsel. After an hour, counsel advised that Malcolm's appointment faced substantial risk of being void. He resigned before the board could vote. 3 directors followed. Calder Bridge sent a letter asserting that any board changes violated its enforcement rights. Priya replied with notice that the proxies and collateral assignments were disputed as products of fraud. Claire was elected interim chair. She looked terrified as she took father's seat. I watched her straighten the papers in front of her. She had spent most of her life being treated as the least serious Mercer. The artistic one. The emotional one. The child who signed documents without reading them. Father had made her custodian because everyone underestimated her. Maybe he had hoped responsibility would force the family to respect her. Maybe he simply knew a custodian needed no appetite for ownership. Claire opened the meeting. Our first duty is to stabilize the company. Her voice trembled once. Then steadied. We will suspend all transactions involving Cedar Meridian, Port Grey, Calder Bridge, Mercer Heritage Finance, or Vale Family Office. The resolution passed. We will appoint independent forensic counsel. Passed. We will notify all lenders that Mercer Pacific has sufficient liquidity and no authorized change of control has occurred. Passed. We will preserve all records and cooperate with investigators. Passed. Then she looked at me. Final resolution. Mercer Pacific recognizes Naomi Mercer as sole legal and beneficial owner of the Cole Harbor Penthouse and disclaims any estate, corporate trust, or family interest in the property. Evan's allies objected. One argued the board had no authority over estate claims. Claire answered calmly. The company is the alleged source of funds. Its records prove those funds were held in custody for Naomi. Mercer Pacific will not support a false claim. The resolution passed 7-1. The company's claim was dead. Evan could still litigate personally. Calder Bridge could still register a caution. But the central fiction had collapsed. My name had always been the only one on title. Now the money trail agreed. The board meeting ended at 3. For the first time since Father's funeral, I returned to my penthouse with legal access. Inventory tags still hung from the walls. Wine stains marked the kitchen island. My mother's earrings were gone with Sabrina. The smashed conservatory glass had been covered with temporary panels. The home felt violated. Not lost. I walked through every room, removing white tags one by one. Claire followed quietly. When we reached the library, she sat in Father's favorite chair. Do you hate me? No. You did not trust me. I still don't understand what you signed. Neither do I. That is the problem. I was 19. You kept signing resolutions after that. Electronic approvals Father's office sent me. I thought they were trust administration. You did not read them. No. I pulled another tag from a sculpture. Then you were careless. Yes. And Father used that. Yes. And Lillian used it. Yes. She looked at me. You want me to argue. I want you to stop agreeing as if agreement erases consequence. Her eyes filled. What do you want me to say? That you understand my money was moved through a company in your name. I understand. That your signature helped authorize it. I understand. That I may never recover all of it. I understand. Do you? She stood. I may own legal shares in a company used to steal more than $1 billion from you. I may be personally exposed for resolutions I signed. I am interim chair of a company under attack by its lender, its directors, and the family of my sister-in-law. Our brother is in jail. Our father designed a system that made me responsible for things he never explained. Yes, Naomi, I understand. Her voice broke. I understand that being the harmless one did not make me harmless. The anger left me. Not all of it. Enough. I sat across from her. We recover the money. How? Orpius. The master ledger is locked by police. Temporarily. And Adrian has the guarantee. The guarantee proves his debt, the ledger proves the money. What if he destroys it? Father never kept one original. Claire almost smiled. No, he didn't. My phone rang. Rachel. They had intercepted the Mercer Pacific jet in Anchorage. Adrian Vale was not aboard. The passengers were 2 Vale family office employees and a private courier. The courier carried a sealed case. Inside was not the original guarantee. It was a decoy. Blank paper waited to match the document package. Adrian had known the aircraft would be stopped. Where is he? I asked. We don't know. Was he ever on the jet? No. Then how did he leave Vancouver? We're reviewing private terminals, marine departures, and border crossings. Sabrina had said he came before her. He took the guarantee. He staged the jet. He expected pursuit. Father had spent years creating closed loops. Adrian created exits. At 5, Jonathan called. Evan's bail hearing had been delayed. He wanted to provide a statement. Not to police. To me. I refused. Then Jonathan sent one sentence. Adrian cannot use the guarantee without the Mercer countersignature. I called back. What countersignature? Jonathan placed Evan on the line under supervision. The debt participation required father's confirmation to activate enforcement. Father is dead. The right passed to the owner of Mercer Heritage Finance. Me. Beneficially. Then Adrian needs my signature. Yes. Why steal a document he cannot use? To destroy it. Then why would he contact me? He won't ask you to sign the guarantee. What will he ask me to sign? A release. The phone on my kitchen counter rang. Not my mobile. The Penthouse landline. I had not used it in years. Only family and building management knew the number. I looked at Claire, then answered. Adrian Vale's voice was deep and calm. Naomi. Where are you? Close enough. You broke into my home. I recovered property stolen from my family. The guarantee belongs to Mercer Heritage Finance. Your father acquired it through coercion. Then challenge it in court. I prefer private solutions. So did Evan. Evan lacked discipline. You destroyed him. He destroyed himself. What do you want? A release of all Vale obligations under the Calder participation. No. In exchange, I return the original will, ownership schedule, and guarantee. We already have the will and schedule. A pause. He had not known. You found the secondary package, he said. Father expected you. Richard expected everyone. The guarantee is all you have. It is enough. Not without my signature. Another pause. Evan was right. Adrian needed me. Then we discuss a broader exchange, he said. No. You have not heard the terms. I do not negotiate with people who break into my home. Your brother negotiated. My brother is in jail. Temporarily. What does that mean? It means his release may depend on which records become public. You are threatening him. I am offering to limit damage. To whom? To Mercer Pacific. The line crackled. Then Adrian said, your company has 48 hours before Calder Bridge calls cross defaults across 7 subsidiaries. Calder Bridge's rights are disputed. Disputes do not stop notices. We have liquidity. You have liquidity on paper. By Monday, 3 banks will freeze revolving facilities, 2 insurers will suspend port coverage, a rating agency will place Mercer Pacific under review. He knew too much. Or he had already arranged it. You planned a run on the company. I planned protection for my family. You sound like Evan. No, Evan confuses desperation with strategy. What are your terms? Claire stared at me. I raised one hand. Listening was not agreeing. Adrian continued. I would sign a full release of the Vale family guarantee. Mercer Pacific would recognize Cedar Meridian's Port Gray acquisition and provide $800 million of committed financing. All claims against Sabrina would be resolved civilly. In return, Adrian would produce the original guarantee and secure Calder Bridge's standstill for 12 months. He was asking us to complete the scheme. To fund the port. To free Sabrina. To erase his debt. And he would call off the attack he helped create. No, I said. You should consult your board. No. You should consult your lenders. No. You have 48 hours. I will use them to find you. He laughed softly. Your father said the same thing once. Did he find you? He found my debt. And that was enough to terrify you for 9 years. The laughter stopped. You are not Richard. No. You do not understand leverage. I understand you stole a document that requires my signature. You assume that is the only version. It is the only enforceable original. Originals are overrated in modern litigation. Not when your entire position depends on proving father's coercion while asking me to release the debt. Silence. I continued. You called because you need certainty. You do not have it. Calder Bridge is exposed. Lillian is arrested. Sabrina's arrested. Evan is cooperating. Your jet decoy failed and Mercer Pacific's board no longer answers to your proxies. You sound confident. I am on title. He ended the call. Claire exhaled. You provoked him. He was already attacking. What now? We find the cross defaults. Priya arrived with a team from her firm. For the next 6 hours, we mapped Mercer Pacific's debt structure. Adrian had not exaggerated. 7 subsidiaries contained clauses allowing lenders to suspend facilities if a material fraud investigation affected corporate control. Calder Bridge had already circulated enforcement notices. Notices did not prove default. But banks reacted to uncertainty. By morning, one revolving facility was frozen. Then, a second. A shipping insurer requested additional collateral. A port authority delayed a contract. The market had begun to do Adrian's work for him. We needed to release enough evidence to restore confidence without triggering panic or compromising the criminal investigation. Rachel refused immediate publication of the vault documents. Priya negotiated access to certified copies. Claire prepared a board statement. I contacted 2 banks personally and offered temporary guarantees. One accepted. The other wanted $300 million in cash collateral. I provided it. By noon, Mercer Pacific had stabilized 24 hours of operations. Not 48. Father's recording had said the Penthouse was not the asset Evan was truly trying to save. He had been trying to save Mercer Pacific control. Now control was ours. And the company was bleeding because of it. At 1:15, Orpheus completed forensic recovery under police supervision. Rachel allowed us to view the master ownership ledger in a secure room. The ledger showed that $1.3 billion of my North Star proceeds had remained in Mercer Heritage Finance. $800 million had been transferred into Cedar Meridian through a chain of subsidiaries. $300 million had been pledged to support Evans' Calder Bridge facility. $200 million remained in Treasury instruments. The transfers carried Claire's electronic approvals. They also carried Lillian's administrative certificate and Sabrina's legal review. Evan had signed the final borrowing resolutions. Every sibling's name appeared. Exactly as father intended. Claim. Custody. Control. But the ledger contained one more account. A reserve marked RM Recourse Fund. Balance $750 million. Beneficial owner Naomi Mercer. Purpose: automatic recovery upon unauthorized use of North Star capital. Father had created an insurance reserve. Enough to restore most of what had been diverted. Claire stared at the screen. He knew they would take it. He suspected. Why not tell us? Because then they would know the reserve existed. The fund was held outside Mercer Pacific at a Swiss custodian with Canadian enforcement instructions. Release required proof of unauthorized transfer and signatures from the claimant and custodian. Me and Claire. No, Evan. Father had given us the means to recover. Not free money. Our own money protected from the people who tried to use it. We signed the release request. The custodian confirmed settlement within 1 business day. Mercer Pacific's liquidity crisis could be covered. Adrian's 48-hour deadline had lost its power. I expected relief. Instead, Rachel entered the room with a new expression. We located Adrian Vale. Where? On Vancouver Island. Arrest him. We do not currently have a charge authorizing arrest. He broke into my property. We have evidence someone entered through the adjacent parcel. We do not yet have proof he personally did. Where on Vancouver Island? At a private medical facility. Claire frowned. Why? Rachel placed a photograph on the table. Adrian lay in a hospital bed. Unconscious. A ventilator covered his mouth. He was admitted 6 hours ago after an apparent stroke. Prius studied the image. Convenient. It appears medically genuine. Who brought him? Amelia Grant. The room went still. Rachel continued. Amelia says Adrian contacted her after leaving Vancouver. She claims he intended to deliver the guarantee to her for safekeeping. Where is it? I asked. She says he arrived without it. Then she is lying. Possibly. Did she have the disposable phone? No. Did she contact police? After he collapsed. Claire looked at Rachel. Can he speak? No. Will he recover? Doctors do not know. The one person who knew where the guarantee had gone was unconscious. Perhaps dying. Perhaps protected by illness long enough for someone else to move. Rachel's phone vibrated. She read the message. Then looked at me. What? A courier delivered a package to your penthouse. From whom? No sender. Open it. Bomb technicians are examining it. 20 minutes later, the package was cleared. Inside was the original veil guarantee. No damage. No explanation. Only a handwritten note. Your father owned the debt. He never owned the truth. The handwriting was not Adrian's. Not Lillian's. Not Sabrina's. Not Evan's. Priya compared it with the documents in father's case. Then with the witness signature on the 2025 will. The handwriting belonged to Amelia Grant. She had called me. She had witnessed the false revocation. She had brought Adrian to the medical facility. And now she had returned the guarantee. Rachel called the hospital. Amelia was gone. Security footage showed her leaving through a staff entrance 20 minutes earlier. She drove Adrian's car. The vehicle crossed onto the Trans-Canada Highway heading south. Toward Victoria. Toward the legal document vault referenced on father's USB drive. Priya opened the recovered credential list. The Victoria repository remained untouched. It was the only external archive we had not accessed. What is stored there? Claire asked. Rachel looked at me. I knew before Priya opened the access description. The repository contained a single sealed file deposited by Richard Mercer. Release condition. Death of Richard Mercer. Arrest of any beneficiary. Production of original veil guarantee. And personal attendance by Amelia Grant. She has the guarantee? Claire asked. I looked at the package on the table. No. She returned it. Which means she completed one condition for us. Or she made a copy. Priya read the final line of the repository instructions. Upon satisfaction of all conditions, the vault shall release the identity declaration of the true settler. Claire frowned. Settler of what? Priya scrolled. The Mercer Family Governance Trust. The trust that controlled Mercer Pacific after father's death. The trust we assumed father had created. The identity declaration would reveal who had legally settled the voting shares into it. Not necessarily father. Someone else. Someone whose identity could determine whether the entire 2025 structure was valid. My phone rang. Amelia. I answered. Her voice was calm now. I'm going to the vault. We know. You need to meet me there. Why? Because Richard was not the settler. Who was? I cannot say over the phone. Then turn around and tell police. No. Amelia. If Calder Bridge learns the identity first, they will challenge the trust before the declaration is released. They already challenge it. Not on the correct ground. What ground? That the settler lacked ownership of the shares. My stomach tightened. Did father put shares into a trust he did not own? No. Then who did? The person who owned Mercer Pacific before him. That is impossible. Father founded the company. At least, that was the story. Amelia lowered her voice. Richard founded the operating business. He did not own the original voting block. Who did? You have 90 minutes to reach Victoria. Tell me now. I promised Richard I would disclose it only under the vault protocol. You already broke your obligations. Yes. And now you choose ceremony? Now I choose evidence. The line clicked. Before it disconnected, Amelia said one final sentence. Bring Claire, the declaration concerns her mother. The last ferry we could catch had already left Savasan. Priya chartered a seaplane. At 6:45 in the evening, Claire and I climbed aboard at Vancouver Harbor, while rain flattened the water into dark steel. Priya remained in Vancouver to coordinate the board, the criminal investigation, and the emergency filings against Calder Bridge. Rachel Dunn came with us. She had obtained authority to preserve the Victoria Vault contents, but not to prevent Amelia from entering. Amelia was named in the release protocol. Until she committed another offense, she retained legal access. The pilot lifted us over Cole Harbor. My penthouse disappeared beneath the wing. For the first time since Evan changed the locks, I did not feel pulled toward it. The title dispute was over. The corporate resolution, father's declaration, the original purchase records, and the forensic signature report established what I had known from the beginning. The penthouse was mine. No shared inheritance. No family trust. No beneficial claim. My name was the only one on title because I was the only owner. But Father had hidden a larger ownership structure beneath that simple truth. Now we were flying toward the document that might decide whether our family controlled Mercer Pacific at all. Claire sat across from me, gripping the edge of her seat. What did Amelia mean about Mom? I don't know. You must have a theory. I have several. Tell me the worst one. That Father did not own the original voting shares. And Mom did? Possibly. Claire stared through the window. Our mother, Evelyn Mercer, had died 7 years earlier after a long illness. Publicly, she had been described as the quiet partner behind Father's success. Quiet was not the word I would have used. She was observant. Exact. She could walk into a room, say almost nothing, and leave knowing who had lied. She avoided board meetings, but she read every annual report. She disliked debt. She disliked Sabrina immediately. And she once told me that Mercer Pacific would not have survived its first decade if Father had been allowed to make every decision alone. At the time, I thought she meant emotional support. Father received the headlines. Mother may have held the shares. Why hide that? Claire asked. Tax planning, creditor protection, control. Or because Dad wanted everyone to think he built it alone. That, too. Rachel sat behind us reviewing messages. Amelia's vehicle entered Victoria 20 minutes ago. Where is the vault? I asked. A private legal repository near the inner harbor. The company stores original trust instruments, wills, mining rights, and confidential corporate records. Can she release the file without us? The protocol requires personal attendance by Amelia. It does not expressly require your attendance. Then why did she call? Maybe the declaration cannot be understood without you. Or she wants witnesses. Claire looked at Rachel. Do you trust her? No. Do you think she killed Adrian? Rachel's expression remained neutral. There is no evidence of poisoning, assault, or induced illness. Medical staff believe his stroke was genuine. That was not my question. No, I do not trust her. The seaplane landed in Victoria Harbor under low clouds. A police vehicle took us to a sandstone building 3 blocks from the legislature. The repository occupied the basement beneath an old law office. No sign marked the entrance. A security officer checked Rachel's credentials and led us through 2 locked corridors to a document room. Amelia Grant stood beside a steel table. She wore a dark raincoat and held a leather portfolio. She looked older than she had sounded on the phone. Not weak. Tired. A repository lawyer sat near the wall. 2 sealed envelopes rested on the table. One bore Father's handwriting. The other was typed. Amelia looked at Claire first. You resemble Evelyn. Claire did not answer. Rachel positioned herself near the door. Where is Adrian Vale's vehicle? In the underground garage. Where is his phone? In the vehicle. Where is the original guarantee? I sent it to Naomi. Why? It was required to activate the release protocol. You could have brought it here. I did not want to be stopped with it. By whom? Calder Bridge. Rachel's expression hardened. Did they contact you? Repeatedly. Show me. Amelia handed over her phone. Rachel passed it to an officer. I looked at the 2 envelopes. Which one is the identity declaration? The typed envelope. And the other? Richard's final instructions. Open them. The repository lawyer spoke. The release conditions must be verified first. He reviewed the evidence of Father's death. Evan's arrest. The courier record confirming production of the original Vale guarantee. Amelia's identification. Then he examined a notarized protocol Father had deposited 9 months earlier. All conditions are satisfied. He broke the seal on the typed envelope. Inside was a declaration signed 38 years ago. The settler of the original Mercer family voting trust was Evelyn Ann Mercer. Our mother. Claire lowered herself into a chair. I read the declaration slowly. Mother had inherited a portfolio of shipping and timber investments from her father, a Halifax industrial lawyer named James Halden. She contributed those assets to the early Mercer enterprise in exchange for the company's controlling voting bloc. Father built the operating business. Mother funded it. Legally, the shares were hers. She later settled them into a private trust. Father received operating authority for life. Upon his death, control was to pass under an appointment mechanism Mother reserved. Claire whispered she owned Mercer Pacific. She controlled it, Amelia said. Why did no one know? Several people knew: Richard, Lillian, Malcolm, the original trust lawyers. Adrian Vale learned later. Did Evan know? I asked. Not until last year. That explained more than I wanted it to. Evan had spent his life preparing to inherit Father's company. Then learned Father did not own the controlling block outright. His anticipated inheritance was weaker than he believed. So he borrowed. Forged. Claimed. Seized. He tried to create control before the legal structure exposed him. Claire read the next paragraph. Mother's appointment designated the future control beneficiaries. Not equally. Not according to Father's will. The trust gave me a protective veto over sales, mergers, and debt transactions. It gave Evan operating authority subject to fiduciary limits. And it gave Claire the power to appoint and remove trustees. Claire stared at the page. Me? Amelia nodded. Evelyn believed you would be the least likely to seek control for yourself. She gave me the power to choose who had it. Yes. That is worse. It is responsibility. It is a trap. Perhaps both. I continued reading. Mother had included automatic disqualification clauses. Any beneficiary who pledged a future interest, falsified family ownership records, or used trust assets for personal borrowing lost active governance rights for 10 years. Evan had triggered all three. His operating authority had terminated before Father died. Calder Bridge's proxy package was not merely disputed. It was built on rights Evan no longer possessed. Claire looked at me. So the lender gets nothing. Not nothing, Rachel said. It may still have claims against directly owned assets, contractual damages, and any valid security Evan granted personally. But not control of Mercer Pacific, I said. Amelia opened Father's handwritten envelope. Inside was a letter addressed to all three of us. My children, you will be tempted to decide which of you I trusted most. That is the wrong question. I trusted each of you with the responsibility most likely to expose your weakness. Naomi, I gave you veto power because you trust documents more than people. A veto forces you to listen before saying no. Evelyn gave you operating authority because you are decisive. Authority without ownership was meant to teach you restraint. I failed to ensure that lesson reached you before ambition did. Claire, your mother gave you appointment power because you avoid conflict. Leadership would force you to choose. None of you was meant to rule alone. Claire's tears fell onto the page. Father's letter continued. The penthouse belongs solely to Naomi. I allowed its purchase funds to move through family treasury systems because the transaction was complex and efficient. I did not gift the property to the family, retain a beneficial interest, or instruct Naomi to hold it for anyone else. Any contrary document is false. That sentence closed the door Evan had tried to force open. Not emotionally. Legally. Father then described Mercer Heritage Finance. Claire held the legal shares as custodian. I held the entire beneficial interest. The company had been structured that way because my North Star sale occurred while I faced a threatened lawsuit from a former business partner. Father wanted the funds protected without concealing my ownership from tax authorities or regulators. The lawsuit disappeared. The structure remained. Father should have unwound it. He admitted that. Instead, he kept adding protections until the protections became secrets. Secrets became vulnerabilities. Lillian exploited them. Sabrina weaponized them. Evan tried to control them. Father's final page contained one instruction. Claire must appoint a new independent trust board within 72 hours of receiving Mother's declaration. If she failed, control would transfer temporarily to an institutional trustee chosen by the Supreme Court of British Columbia. Claire looked at the clock. When did the 72 hours start? The repository lawyer checked the protocol. Upon release of the declaration. Now? Yes. Claire stood. We need to return to Vancouver. Amelia remained beside the table. There is one more document. The repository lawyer looked surprised. That was not listed. It was deposited separately. By whom? Evelyn. Amelia removed a small envelope from her leather portfolio. The paper was yellowed. Mother's handwriting covered the front. For my daughters. Claire stopped breathing. Amelia handed it to me. The seal had never been broken. Inside were 2 pages. Mother wrote that she had watched Father turn contingency planning into a language of love. He protected people by controlling outcomes. He believed explanation created risk. She believed secrecy created isolation. If the letter reached us, she wrote, secrecy had won. She told Claire not to mistake gentleness for incapacity. She told me not to mistake independence for safety. Then she wrote about Evan. Your brother will believe the company proves his worth because Richard praised him most when he succeeded. Do not excuse him if he harms you. Do not destroy him merely because you can. Claire read that line twice. I took the letter back. Mother's final instruction was simple. Choose trustees who can say no to all 3 of you. No family majority. No lender representatives. No Vail advisors. No Mercer Pacific executives. Independent people with fiduciary duties and enough courage to resign publicly if pressured. Claire folded the letter carefully. Did Father know this existed? I asked. Amelia shook her head. Evelyn instructed me not to tell him. The irony almost made me laugh. Mother had hidden one document from the man who hid everything from everyone else. Why did you help Evan alter the mortgage schedule? I asked Amelia. She looked down. Because I thought Richard had become what Evelyn feared. Controlling? Dangerous. He was dangerous. Yes. But Evan was lying. I did not understand that soon enough. You met him in May. He showed me medical notes suggesting Richard lacked capacity when the 2025 will was signed. Were the notes genuine? Some were. They described episodes of confusion caused by medication. Not incapacity. No. You knew the difference. Yes. Then, why? Amelia looked at Claire. Evan told me the new trust would give Naomi absolute control and remove Claire entirely. He lied. Yes. And you believed him because it sounded like something Richard might do. That was the most honest answer she had given. She had not been fooled only by forged evidence. She had been fooled by Father's history. A believable lie needed a foundation. Father had built one. Rachel stepped forward. Amelia Grant, you are under arrest for suspected participation in falsification of a witnessed legal instrument and obstruction of testamentary administration. Amelia held out her hands. She did not protest. Before the officer placed the cuffs on her, she looked at me. Richard wanted the truth preserved. He also made it almost impossible to find. He believed only determined people deserved it. No, I said, he believed difficulty made truth safer, it only made liars more powerful. Amelia nodded. I think Evelyn would agree. We returned to Vancouver after midnight. Claire spent the flight compiling a list of independent trustee candidates. No relatives. No current board members. No private lenders. By morning she had 5 names. A retired Supreme Court judge. A former provincial pension fund executive. An Indigenous infrastructure lawyer from Prince Rupert. A governance professor from the University of British Columbia. And a former federal banking regulator. Each received the same disclosure package. No selective evidence. No softened chronology. Evan's fraud. Lillian's diversion. Sabrina's role. Adrian's guarantee. Calder Bridge's enforcement attempt. My beneficial ownership. Claire's custody role. Father's secrecy. Mother's original trust. 3 accepted. 2 declined. The trust required 5. Claire refused to compromise. She contacted another 6 candidates. By the second evening, the board was complete. The new trustees voted unanimously to suspend Evan for 10 years under Mother's disqualification clause. They confirmed my protective veto. They confirmed Claire's trustee appointment authority. They rejected Calder Bridge's control claim. Then they ordered Mercer Pacific to separate family governance from daily management. A professional chief executive would run the company. No sibling would hold unilateral operating authority. For the first time in its history, Mercer Pacific would not be managed as an extension of our father's personality. Calder Bridge challenged everything. Its lawyers filed applications in British Columbia and Ontario. Priya responded with father's declarations, mother's trust, the Orpheus ledger, and the lender's contradictory underwriting records. Calder Bridge had accepted documents proving my ownership of the North Star funds. Later, it accepted forged documents claiming the Penthouse belonged to the family. Its own diligence file contained both. That contradiction destroyed its claim of good faith reliance. The lender's parent company placed Celeste Marr on leave. Then, terminated her. Regulators opened investigations. 3 institutional investors demanded an independent review. Calder Bridge withdrew its caution against my Penthouse before the first hearing. It called the withdrawal commercially prudent. Priya called it surrender. The criminal cases took longer. Lillian was charged with fraud, breach of trust, falsification of records, and conspiracy. Sabrina faced charges relating to forged documents, unauthorized access, and attempted destruction of evidence. Amelia agreed to cooperate. Adrian survived the stroke. When he regained speech, he denied entering my Penthouse, directing Sabrina, or participating in any conspiracy. The rear vault access logs disagreed. So did his driver. So did the Vail guarantee. The guarantee revealed that Adrian's family office had been insolvent on a cash basis for years. Calder Bridge repeatedly extended credit because it expected repayment through the Port Gray transaction and eventual access to Mercer Pacific assets. Father's debt participation allowed Mercer Heritage Finance to block that transaction. Adrian had not broken into the Penthouse only to destroy evidence. He had tried to remove the instrument that gave me veto rights over his family's restructuring. I enforced the guarantee. Not immediately. First, I offered the Vail family office a settlement. They would surrender their interests in Cedar Meridian. They would repay misdirected North Star funds. They would cooperate with investigators. They would withdraw every claim against Mercer Pacific. In exchange, Mercer Heritage Finance would restructure the $4.2 billion obligation over 12 years rather than force immediate liquidation. Adrian rejected the offer. He called it humiliation. 3 days later, his board removed him. The new directors accepted. Port Gray transferred to Mercer Pacific at independently appraised value. Not to Evans' vehicle. Not to Calder Bridge. Not to the Vails. Mercer Pacific acquired it through a transparent board process with regulatory review and no family side agreements. The $800 million taken from my funds was restored. The $300 million pledged to Evans' facility was released after Calder Bridge settled. The $750 million recourse reserve returned to Mercer Heritage Finance. With interest and settlement proceeds, I recovered more than the amount diverted. I did not keep the excess. It represented penalties, damages, and profits generated through transactions that had nearly destroyed the company. I directed it into an independent employee pension reserve and a legal defense fund for small Canadian suppliers harmed by abusive private credit practices. Father would have called that sentimental. Mother would have understood. Evan remained in custody for 6 weeks before receiving bail. His charges included fraud, use of forged documents, breach of trust, and unlawful corporate transfers. He agreed to cooperate against Calder Bridge, Lillian, Sabrina, and Adrian. Cooperation did not erase what he had done. He had known my Penthouse was mine. He had changed the locks anyway. He had known the nominee declaration was false. He used it anyway. He had known Claire did not understand the resolutions she signed. He relied on them anyway. Being manipulated did not make him innocent. It only explained how he became dangerous. I visited him once after his release. He lived in a rented apartment in Burnaby under strict bail conditions. No corporate systems. No contact with Sabrina. No financial transactions above $5,000 without approval. The apartment was clean and almost empty. He made coffee in a machine that cost less than 1 bottle of wine he had opened in my kitchen. "You got the Penthouse back," he said. "It was never gone. You were locked out. That is not the same as losing ownership." It felt like it. Yes. He looked down. "I thought possession would force settlement." "I know. I thought Calder Bridge would wait if the property entered the estate pool. You gave them my home. I gave them a claim. You gave them a weapon." He nodded. There was no argument left in him. "Do you hate me?" he asked. "No." He seemed disappointed. Perhaps hatred would have proved he still held power over me. I do not trust you, I continued. I will not protect you from the consequences. I will not sign a family settlement. I will not ask prosecutors for leniency. I am still your brother. Yes. That must mean something. It means I came here. He looked toward the window. Burnaby Mountain was hidden behind clouds. What did Mother write about me? I had not told him. Neither had Claire. She wrote that you would confuse the company with your worth. His face tightened. She always thought I was selfish. She thought you were hungry. Same thing. No. What else? She told us not to excuse you if you harmed us. He nodded. And not to destroy you merely because we could. He looked at me then. For a second he seemed like the boy outside my bedroom again. Not innocent. Not beyond repair. Just afraid. Did you follow that? He asked. I am trying. His cooperation eventually reduced his sentence. He pleaded guilty to fraud and breach of trust. The court imposed imprisonment, restitution, and a long prohibition on serving as a corporate director. He lost his Mercer Pacific authority. He lost most of his personal investments. He lost his marriage. Did not lose his inheritance entirely. Mother's trust did not disinherit him. It suspended his governance rights and placed his economic interest under independent supervision. He would receive income. He would never again use anticipated family assets as collateral. Claire visited him more often than I did. That was her choice. She remained chair of the Family Governance Council for 1 year, then stepped down after appointing a permanent independent board. She kept her appointment power under Mother's trust but created a public protocol for using it. No hidden resolutions. No blank signatures. No unexplained custodial companies. Every material decision required independent legal advice and written acknowledgement from all affected beneficiaries. She read everything now. Sometimes twice. Mercer Heritage Finance transferred its legal shares from Claire's name into a licensed trust company. I remained the beneficial owner. The company's purpose was narrowed to holding my recovered North Star capital and the restructured Vail debt. No family treasury pooling. No informal custody. No efficiency arrangements that depended on trust. The name stayed. I considered changing it. Then decided history should not be erased simply because it was uncomfortable. 6 months after Father's funeral, the court issued a final declaration regarding the Penthouse. The judgment stated that I held sole legal and beneficial ownership. The Mercer estate had no interest. Mercer Pacific had no interest. Claire had no interest. Evan had no interest. Calder Bridge had no interest. The false nominee declaration was declared void. Every copy was ordered removed from official and private claim records, though preserved for the criminal proceedings. The judge described the attempted claim as a calculated misuse of family ambiguity. That phrase stayed with me. Family ambiguity. It was the space Father created when he used structures instead of conversations. It was the space Evan entered when he decided his fear justified taking control. It was the space Sabrina filled with forged documents. My title had never been ambiguous. The people around it were. I renovated the conservatory. The broken glass was replaced. The hidden vault remained, but I removed the destructive lock and the secret tunnel. The adjacent rooftop access was sealed with concrete and registered on updated strata plans. No unrecorded parcels. No concealed easements. No private passage controlled by another family. I kept the Japanese maples. They had survived the wind, the broken glass, and a week without proper heat. The inventory tags came off everything. My mother's earrings were returned through Sabrina's lawyer. I gave them to Claire. They were left to you, she said. They were left to both of us in different memoranda. Another ambiguity. Yes. What does the formal estate document say? Personal jewelry to me. Then keep them. I placed the box in her hand. I do not want to win every technical argument. She smiled. That is new. I am learning restraint. Mother would be shocked. Father would be suspicious. We stood on the terrace overlooking Cole Harbor. Below us float planes moved across the water. Beyond Stanley Park the mountains were white. Claire leaned against the railing. Do you ever think about selling? The Penthouse? Yes. No. It is worth $140 million. Probably more now. And after everything, you still want to live here? I looked through the glass walls. For months, the property had been described as an asset. Collateral. A state property. Family legacy. Strategic value. A number large enough to make strangers believe ownership must be complicated. But it was still my home. The library where I worked. The kitchen where Mother taught Claire to make bread. The terrace where Father insisted the trees would die. The place Evan tried to take because he believed value created entitlement. Yes, I said, I still want to live here. A year after the funeral, Mercer Pacific held its annual meeting in Vancouver. For the first time, no Mercer family member chaired the board. The independent trustees presented audited financial statements, governance reforms, and the completed Port Grey acquisition. Employees held a larger profit-sharing interest. Debt was lower. The company survived. Not because one sibling controlled it. Because none of us did. After the meeting, a reporter asked whether the family had reconciled. I told her reconciliation was not an event. It was not a photograph outside a courthouse. It was not forgiveness announced before consequences ended. It was a series of decisions not to repeat the same harm. Claire and I were close. Evan and I were honest. That was not the same as close. Sabrina eventually pleaded guilty to several charges in exchange for testimony against Adrian and Calder Bridge executives. She admitted providing my signature sample and coordinating the false nominee package. In court, she said she never believed the Penthouse truly belonged to the family. She believed the claim would force me to negotiate. That was the logic behind all of it. They did not need the lie to become true forever. They needed it to become expensive enough that truth felt unaffordable. They miscalculated. Truth was expensive. I paid lawyers, forensic accountants, security teams, emergency financing, court fees. I lost sleep, privacy, time with my father before he died because he spent his final months building traps instead of telling us what was coming. But I could afford the price. Many people cannot. That was the ugliest lesson. A forged claim does not need to win on merit when it can win through exhaustion. Father's final systems saved the asset. Mother's letter saved us from repeating his methods. I placed copies of both in the Penthouse library. Not hidden. Not encrypted. Not sealed behind a wall. Claire had access. The independent trustees had access. My lawyers had access. No one needed a riddle to find them. On the second anniversary of Father's death, Evan joined Claire and me at the cemetery under supervision permitted by his release conditions. Rain fell lightly. Vancouver rain. Persistent enough to soak everything without ever becoming dramatic. Evan stood before Father's stone. He knew Calder Bridge would use me, he said. Yes. He let it happen. He tried to stop it. Too late. Yes. Evan looked at me. You can admit he failed. He failed us in many ways. Claire placed flowers beside Mother's marker. He also left us the tools to survive. Evan laughed bitterly. He left tools, never instructions. He left too many instructions, I said. They were just hidden in the wrong places. We stood there together. Not united. Not divided in the way we had been. Something less comforting and more real. Before leaving, Evan said, I am sorry I changed the locks. It sounded too small. For a long time I wanted an apology equal to the harm. There was no sentence large enough. I know, I said. I am sorry I claimed it belonged to everyone. You knew it didn't. Yes. Say the rest. He looked at me. I claimed it because I needed it. No. He closed his eyes. I claimed it because I believed needing it gave me the right. That was the truth. I nodded. Then Claire and I left him beside Father's grave. When I returned home, Daniel stood behind the concierge desk. He no longer looked nervous when he saw me. Good evening, Ms. Mercer. Good evening. He handed me a new access card. After the litigation, building management replaced the entire private elevator security system. No executor letters. No family instructions. No emergency access changes without the registered owner's verified authorization or a court order. I tapped the card. The elevator opened. As the doors closed, I saw my name on the access display. Naomi Mercer. No shared beneficiaries. No estate representative. No brother claiming inheritance. The elevator rose. When the doors opened, the penthouse was quiet. Mine was the only name on title. In the end, that had mattered exactly as much as I said it did. But title alone had not saved me. Evidence had. Persistence had. Claire's signature had. Evan's own loan records had. Mother's trust had. And Father's final mistake had helped too. He believed the truth was safest when hidden. He was wrong. The truth became safe only when everyone who needed it could see it. I walked through the conservatory and opened the doors to the terrace. Cold air moved around me. Japanese maples were bare for winter but alive. Below, the lights of Vancouver reflected across the harbor. For the first time since the funeral, no one was waiting behind me with a claim, a settlement agreement, or a key they had no right to use. I closed the doors, locked them, and kept the only access card in my hand. The end.